Yeah, good afternoon. Welcome to the Stochastic.com NBA Deeper Dive presented by Bet365, where you turn $1 into literally $365 in a minute. But we'll get to that later in the show. First off, happy to have you guys with us. I'm Dave Loughran, at Loughie_D on the Twitters, joined by Adam Scherer at Ship My Money DFS, breaking down an 8-game slate. And hey, good thing we did the strategy show this morning.
Yeah, that was a really useful show with a lot of information that has not changed at all.
No, like Luka Doncic is still suspended and Giannis is playing. Everything looks good.
Yeah, Embiid didn't bitch out.
Oh yeah, right. Joel Embiid's that's another one. Yeah, I mean the Towns stuff in the Blazers is I expected that. Like I'm not surprised that Towns is out. Not surprised that the Blazers ruled everybody out. But you got no Joel Embiid. You're out there saying he's scared. I mean, just taunting people. And I refuse to give in to that nonsense.
I mean, it could be a coincidence, but the guy hasn't played in Denver in 3 years.
Dude, it's the altitude. No.
And it's about to be all 3 years that Jokic gets MVP. Embiid refuses to play against him in Denver.
I'm pretty sure he wants to play. Like, you would not be gunning for the MVP. Like, my thing is, like, should I be concerned that it's actually serious?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it is, but my actual favorite part of it is that he did sort of bring up Jokic's name a couple of times unprompted in his pressers during the week and then doesn't play.
I don't know why you hate him so much. You just hate the man.
Yeah, I mean, really, I just like getting reactions out of Philly fans. But.
I know. I don't buy into that. I told you, I don't care about the MVP race. I just think it's absurd when you're out there saying he's scared. But
I did get a bet. I did finally bet Jokic to an MVP just because it shouldn't matter that Embiid's missing this game, but that there's at least a couple MVP voters that are dumb enough that this will matter. So I did finally take the Jokic plus 140.
The arbitrary nonsense of they're playing each other.
Right. I was actually kind of I was obviously looking forward to the matchup, but I was kind of dreading the commentary around it. I assumed Embiid was going to play because it was if Embiid has a big game, it's going to suddenly be see, he's the MVP or vice versa. So I was sort of dreading that. Now it's obviously not going to happen.
Which is also funny because if that's the case and they do weight that heavily, Embiid dropped 47 and 18
Right.
in late January against Jokic. So,
oh yeah, he went nuts in that game.
Yeah, he went nuts, and they won. They came back from like an 18-point deficit, but that's besides the fact. Happy to have you guys with us. We've been crushing the thumbs up game lately, and I've been asking like once or twice a show. So let's do 500 here. Not out of the gate, but I assume we'll get there by the end of this one around 6 o'clock before we turn it over to Greg and Neil for Live Before Lock. But yeah, appreciate you guys being here. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Funny slate though. Milwaukee went from being a tournament team to having 4 of the top 6 owned players this today. Middleton's like 62% owned at 7,700. Nasir Little is getting 80% right now. So let's dive into it. I will say this much though. If this was already a slate when you and I discussed it this morning on the strategy show, where you go, yeah, just a lot of teams that don't have all that much, a lot of ownership is going to be concentrated around a handful of teams today.
Yeah, even more so than it was this morning when it was pretty much just Portland. Now there's a couple other teams like that.
Let's make it happen. First up, Dallas at Indy. So this was a pick 'em earlier. Now Luka, they rescinded the 16th technical, so he's playing. 4-point favorites on the road against Indy. So it's a no better spot. Yeah, and that's another one. Like he's not out, but now he's in. So looking at the Dallas Mavericks, Luka is in a really good spot today. It's just a matter, and now you have no Joel Embiid, you have no Giannis, so there aren't that many top-priced assets out there today outside of him and Jokic. Once you get down to like Sabonis and Booker and a few others. But what are you doing with Doncic today against the Pacers in a good spot?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good spot. He looks pretty good at 11-9. And like you said, there is value on this slate, and there's not a ton of top-tier pay-up options. So I think getting to Luka is perfectly fine. Clearly, you'd prefer him if Kyrie were out. But 11-9, playing big minutes, Dallas has to start winning games. So you expect big minutes out of both Luka and Kyrie. And with them both being in, I think they're correctly priced, if not, a little bit overpriced, but they still just offer massive ceilings and, should be playing a lot of minutes. You also have shooting guard eligibility on Kyrie on DraftKings, which is pretty useful. So getting to either one of those guys in tournaments where Luka's only 10% owned, Kyrie's 7%, looks pretty appealing to me. Luka in particular, actually projected to go a little bit under owned, 16% projected ownership, 10% chance of being optimal on DraftKings.
Irving's been a disaster lately. I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up being like less than 7%. Just spitballing here, but man, he has been struggling lately. Still playing big minutes, but I don't know. Do you think the experiment thus far with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving has been successful with the limited amount of time we've seen them?
I mean, it obviously hasn't been successful. I don't know whether or not it's actually to blame.
I don't mean like results. I mean, do you think they can coexist is a better way to put it?
I certainly think they can. I haven't paid enough attention to really have an opinion on like what the problem is. I am fully enjoying the narrative that it's all Kyrie's fault, whether it is or not. I have no idea, but it's certainly entertaining.
If this were to blow up, right, just go up in flames, does another team jump to get Kyrie Irving again, or is that kind of like, okay, we've seen enough?
No, they will. I mean, he's still talented. You're going to have a lot of coaches, GMs being like, oh, well, we're the ones that can get him to, coexist with someone for like the first time since LeBron. But yeah, I mean, he'll go somewhere. He's too good not to.
Yeah. Someone will take a stab at him, but I'm not.
I mean, like Ben Simmons is going to be on a team next year.
Yeah. Yeah. But if he decides he wants to even play.
Right.
When it comes to the Pacers too, this could get mixed up a little bit in the event that because Halliburton's questionable, Miles Turner is questionable, so this isn't exactly that straightforward. Buddy Hield got ruled out after we did the strategy show. Chris Duarte's out, so let's just say Halliburton were to sit or Turner were to sit as well. Then it opens some stuff up for sure. Right now, though, man, I think you're just looking at pieces of Halliburton. Benedict Mathurin should get decent run here, particularly with Buddy Hield sidelined. What else are you seeing?
Yeah, so I mean, we've had Mathurin in the starting lineup. Last game, Hield actually came off the bench. You only got 24 minutes out of Mathurin, but typically you're going to get closer to 30. He's coming in at 4,800, 12% owned, shooting guard, small forward. So he's going to look pretty good with or without Halliburton and Turner. You could certainly argue that there's more offensive production available if one or both of those guys are out. But either way, he's going to look decent. Hill being out, I think, could potentially benefit Jordan Nwora. We got a massive game out of him last time out. He played 33 and a half minutes off the bench. He scored 25 actual points in the second quarter of that game. So you're not expecting anything close to that to happen again. But he has played well with Indiana. He's 4,900, so he's relatively risky, but there is still some upside for him there. And it's going to look, a little bit better if you're also taking out Halliburton potentially. TJ McConnell's down to 5,100. I don't really know what DraftKings does with his salary. Like, just leave him at 6,500, because if Halliburton is in, you're not really playing McConnell at, any price unless he's like minimum salary. But when Halliburton's out, 5,100 is just pretty much a broken price tag for 28 or 29 minutes of McConnell off the bench. If Halliburton is out, it also is going to make Nembhard look a bit better at 5,400. So there's a lot to get to. If he's out, if Turner is out, you're likely getting 48 minutes split from Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith. They're both cheap. 3,900 center only for Jackson, 4,100 power forward center for Smith. In the most recent game, you got about 23 and a half minutes from Jackson, 25, or you got about 23 minutes from Jackson, 25 from Jalen Smith. Wouldn't play them together, but they're both going to look like good values if Turner is out.
Milwaukee, Detroit. What's pretty amazing about this game is that it was around 16 and a half. They rule out Giannis and Drew Holiday. You know what the spread is now?
Probably still like 14.
Yeah, 13 still. It made no difference whatsoever. Of 3.5 points, but that's with Giannis and Drew out. I mean, at this rate, I don't see how you want to get away from Chris Middleton today. Our only argument would be, yeah, he's 60% owned, 62% owned right now, but just an overall fantastic spot. Excellent matchup against a beat up and already bad Detroit team. You're taking a team that has three guys in essence, right? Like, yes, they have Portis and they have Brook Lopez, but three guys, like the three big dogs, taking two of them off the floor. And now you're getting Chris Middleton, who's no longer on a sustained minutes limit. I mean, totally get it. Javon Carter is going to be extraordinarily popular at almost minimum salary. Bobby Portis, Brook Lopez, probably get some pieces of Grayson Allen, Joe Ingles in there too. Like, it's hard to go wrong with these guys.
Yeah, there's suddenly a ton to like here. And the other nice thing about Middleton, he's going to be really popular, like you said, and he is projected to go quite a bit over-owned in the sense that he's pulling 62% ownership with a 37% chance of being optimal, but that's still over 1 in 3 times that you have a $7,700 player showing up in the optimal lineup. That's a very, very high number for somebody in that price range, because you still have so many guys around him that don't project as well, but still have, a similar ceiling. It's pretty crazy to see somebody at that price tag showing up that much. Still clearly a top option. Small forward, doesn't typically give you a ton to work with either. And the other nice thing is that, it's, when we talked about him this morning, it was like, well, somebody's probably going to have a big game here because they're 17.5 point favorites playing against the Pistons. But here, there is still blowout risk, but the production is likely to be a lot more concentrated to Chris Middleton now, where if this game does get out of hand, you can be more confident that Chris Middleton's the one doing it, as opposed to saying like, oh, well, was it Drew? Was it Lopez? Was it Middleton? Was it Giannis? It's a lot more likely that Middleton has a big hand in it now if this game does get out of hand.
Right. How do you feel about the boom bust tool where you have Chris Middleton 62% on it, 38% optimal? So like, clearly a lot of negative leverage, but also, and I wouldn't ask you that if it was like a super cheap play where you go, yeah, but they're still dirt cheap. But he is expensive. So what do you make of something like that? And even just for somebody looking at the boom bust tool, maybe they're taking advantage of the promo we have. By the way, link down there below, link in the description. And chat, the MLB is back promo. All of our tools 50% off, whether you're new or existing user, not just basketball, every single sport, and baseball is coming back. Every single tool we have, and you can get the Fantasy Cruncher add-on if you want. You get lineup generator. You get you understand 50% off everything new or existing. Link down below or in chat. But yeah, like if someone's just getting acclimated with this tool, how would you approach something like this with that optimal score on Middleton at his ownership?
Yeah, it sort of ends up coming down to whether or not you can find other strong pivots on the slate, because he's going over owned, but he's also one of the most likely guys to succeed. You have on his team, we have a 60% optimal percentage on Carter because he's so cheap, but then it's, around 37% on Middleton, around 39% on Portis. But in the context of the entire slate, those are still going to be some of the highest marks. If you look on DraftKings, it's pretty much just Portland and Milwaukee at the top. We have Middleton with the fourth highest chance of any player on the slate of being in the optimal lineup, and everyone else is, around him is pretty inexpensive because Little is sub 4K, Carter is sub 4K, Portis is 5,600. Then you get to Middleton. Then you have two more $4,300 guys from Portland. So it's a situation where, he's a little bit too popular if you're just looking at him individually, but there's 7 or 8, depending on what site you're talking about, other spots in your lineup that you can be different. You're probably still going to be able to find some low-owned guys on an 8-game slate where you can go ahead and eat the ownership that Middleton's getting. So it really just ends up coming down from a roster construction standpoint to, can you find those other low-owned guys, or are you playing, other popular guys and taking a stand where you get away from Middleton?
Okay, that's a good explanation. What about the rest of this team? I mean, Javon Carter, 61% optimal is insane on an 8-game slate. Bobby Portis, 38% optimal. Brook Lopez, 21 across the board, man. And it's not even like it's a bad, they're 13-point favorites on the road still, and still have one of the highest implied totals on the slate. Like, you take Giannis out, you take Jrue Holiday out, and they still have a monster implied total today. It's still over 120 points.
Yeah. I didn't hear your question, but
what are you doing with the rest of Milwaukee?
Playing them. Carter's very cheap at 3,400. He is playing alongside Middleton, obviously, but other than that, he should have a little bit bigger role than he normally does. I typically prefer Carter when 2 of the 3 guys are out. Like earlier in the season, you were getting, if you got Jrue out, you would have Giannis in, but you would have no Middleton, you'd have no Jrue. That's a lot better for him than when only one of those guys is out. Like if Jrue is out and Giannis and Middleton are both in, and you're getting that Javon Carter spot start, it's not nearly as appealing. But here at 3,400, it makes him look really good. Bobby Portis likely to step into the starting lineup and play a bunch of minutes. He's going to look really good. Brook Lopez looks fine. I do think he's probably, of the main 4 guys that are pulling ownership on Milwaukee, Lopez is probably the easiest to start getting away from. He's projected for 31% ownership on DraftKings, 20% chance of being optimal, but you just have plenty of other centers within, $1,000, give or take, of Brook Lopez's salary that you can pivot to at lower ownership that look a little bit more comparable to him than you do when you start talking about those other 3 guys. So I think Lopez is clearly a very good play. I thought he was a good play this morning at that salary, even before we got news. But I think that if I'm guessing like which Milwaukee guy I am most likely not to get to the field on, Lopez would be my guess there. Allen and Ingles both look fine as well, pulling 10 to 20% ownership.
How many minutes do you think Javon Carter plays tonight?
28-ish.
Okay. Yeah, minimum salary. Just going to be really difficult to get away from something like that. Anything
I wanted to see. So we've only had one game this season where Holiday and Giannis were out and Middleton was in, but we have had 9 games where Jrue Holiday and Middleton were both out. 5 games where they were both out and Giannis was in. And so I think that's a decent proxy, those 5 games, because,
Sure.
In this case, you're flipping Middleton and Giannis. But in those 5 games, 0.74 DraftKings points per minute for Carter, 29.1 minutes per game.
Okay. So almost 30 minutes per game. You can deal with that at that price in this matchup. Detroit. We go from a team that's just loaded with value from top to bottom, really, at every price tier, to the Detroit Pistons. There's not a lot here today at all. I mean, yes, Bogdanovich and Stewart and Burks are out, but those guys have all been out. There's nobody that you're going to find that benefits from them being out this long. All the prices have adjusted, and now you're just staring at a team that's a 13-point dog, and nobody has ownership nobody has an optimal score north of 5% on this team. That's Jaden Ivey with slight positive leverage at 7,100.
Yeah, there's not much to like here, and that did not change from this morning. It's, Milwaukee's a little bit less likely to run away with this game, but you just don't have any pricing that looks very good. Jalen Duren at 5K would probably be the easiest guy to make a case for, just because if Wiseman does get in foul trouble, you can get enough minutes from Duren where he starts to look good. But there's also a lot of really good centers today. So still, to me, one of the least appealing teams on the slate.
Good question from DM Brian. Member for 14 months. What's up, brother? Using this free super chat member here. What rules would you use for Milwaukee tonight, Adam?
Not going to be too aggressive with those. I think probably only playing like one of Ingles, Connaughton, Crowder, but I don't expect that to end up being an issue very often anyway. Other than that, I don't really have any because I'm expecting Portis to start next to Lopez, so you're getting plenty of minutes from them together. Middleton doesn't, not share the floor with anybody that we'd be playing. Carter is cheap enough that, assuming he starts, he's going to look good either way. I don't really think there's too many rules that you need.
Okay. Talk about the Houston Rockets then. They're 13.5-point dogs today, too. Some big spreads. Pelicans moved to 11.5. As I assume that would move considerably with Portland. No reason for them to play any of those guys. But you've got 3 big double-digit spreads. This is another one of them. You talked about Houston having some guys that you're still willing to target in tournaments. Given the complexion of this slate now, do you feel more likely to do something like that since guys such as Middleton are 60% owned at that mid-range price, or less likely to do that now that a lot more has opened up?
Less likely or more likely to
you said earlier this morning with Houston that you had interest in them for tournaments still. Like, are you as interested, more interested, less interested now that the slate has changed a lot?
Pretty much the same. I mean, I guess a little bit less interested just because there's more like clear-cut good plays now that we have Milwaukee, but it's still kind of the same thing. It's a Houston team that just isn't getting any ownership. Jalen Green, 5% owned, Alperen Şengün, 2% owned, Kevin Porter Jr., 4%. Like, it's still just a team where if this game is competitive, if they do hang with the Knicks, one, it means at least one of these starters is probably playing well for Houston. And two, those starters are just playing huge minutes. So the ceiling is there, but from like a median standpoint, they are a little bit overpriced because you have to account for the fact that the Knicks are big favorites and certainly could run away with this game. So it's comparable to this morning, probably just a little bit lower because you have more clear-cut priorities elsewhere.
If you had to play one Rocket, is it Jalen Green?
I think it's Green. It would be either Green or Porter, but they're getting pretty much the same ownership. Green is $600 less, so probably him. Green, Şengün, Porter, I think would be the 3 top options, but Şengün being a center was, I think moves him behind those other 2.
All right, let's talk about the Knicks then. By the way, appreciate you guys. 221 likes here. We got 1,600 people watching with us this afternoon. Should climb as we move throughout the show. If you forgot, atone for your sins. YouTube overlords, you know how this works. How about the fact that Jalen Brunson is still questionable? Because we've already gotten a lot changing throughout the day, but if he sits and you're getting another 40 minutes from Emmanuel Quickley against this Rockets team as huge favorites, that shakes things up even further. If Brunson plays, he's 13% owned, slight positive leverage in the boom bust tool. Julius Randle, another one, 9,300. Maybe he's a little bit more interesting now that Embiid and Embiid and Giannis are out, but what do you want to do at the top of New York right now? And how do you approach it if Brunson ends up sitting? Because that could make a difference. Yeah,
it's certainly huge news. If he's in, Brunson and Randle both look pretty good here. It's a good matchup against Houston. You're getting around 36 minutes from Randle, probably around the same from Brunson. They're both going to look like good options. It's going to be tough to get to anything else. If you want to take some shots at Mitchell Robinson at 4,800 and 4% ownership, then fine. You're going to get a ton of ownership coming into Drew Eubanks for $500 less. He's going to be he's the guy that you should have more of, but in a lineup, if you want to switch some of that to, Mitchell Robinson, that's perfectly fine. But Randle and Brunson, would stand out. And then it's tough to get to much of anything else. If you take Brunson out though, Randle continues to look good, but then you expect a ton of minutes from Emmanuel Quickley at only 6,500. We had seen prior to the most recent game that Brunson missed, we'd seen a couple of underwhelming games in terms of playing time from Quickley, where Miles McBride played a bunch of minutes and you only got 31 and 34 minutes from Quickley. But last game, you only got 6 minutes total from McBride. They went back to playing Quickley like 41 minutes. He played the entire second quarter. He's now averaged in 10 total games without Brunson and with Randall, 41.1 minutes per game. Granted, there were a couple of overtime games mixed in there, but he's playing massive minutes on average without Jalen Brunson. It also opens the door for some combination of Barrett, Hart, and Grimes to play more minutes. We got a massive game from Quentin Grimes last time out, far better than anybody should have expected, but as a result of him playing and shooting really, really well, he also played 38 minutes. So you ended up getting just shy of 30 minutes from Hart and Barrett. Typically, you're going to get like mid 30s from Barrett, low 30s from Hart, upper 20s or so from Quentin Grimes. But, if Brunson is out, but it makes, at their price tags, it makes all of them reasonable plays. Whereas if Brunson is in, I don't really think you can get to any of that.
Right. All right. So we pay attention to that news. You got Live Before Lock coming up after this, plus 7:30 games. So we should have news on that. Let's talk about Phoenix and Utah then. This is also a weird slate because there are, 3 10 p.m. games, and a 10:30, a 9 and 9:30, and then just a 7:30 in between that with 2 7. So like there's a 2 7 o'clocks, a 7:30, and then it just jumps to 9 o'clock and 9:30. There's none of these 8 p.m. games mixed in between. So big gap there. Maybe it'll work in our favor. We'll see. But when it comes to Phoenix and Utah, you have the Suns today on the road. Significant favorites, 7 points. No Durant still. Ayton's expected back. He's probable. But the fact that on the other side, Utah is without Lauri Markkanen's a game-time decision. They're down Clarkson. They're down Sexton, Fontecchio, and Rudy Gay. So we will get to that. But first, let's move through this Phoenix team today. How do you feel now about Devin Booker in tournaments with a lot of these top guys ruled out?
Pretty comparable to earlier. It's still a very high upside tournament play that is just relatively difficult to get to because you have so many other good plays on the slate, and he's pretty much correctly priced. But 30 games this year where Durant has been out and Paul has been in, 1.2 DraftKings points per minute for Booker, 34 minutes per game, good matchup. 22 games where Ayton has also been in, still 1.16 DraftKings points per minute with a 31% usage rate. He's just somebody where he's kind of similar, like how we talk about, Steph Curry, when Steph Curry's around 10K and not very popular. He's scoring dependent, but there's just a relatively high percentage of games where he scores enough points that you just have to have him and he can win you a tournament at 6% owned. So I like the idea of using him to be contrarian where you can. Maybe if you're using a lot of that Milwaukee value, you have Carter at high ownership, you have Portis at high ownership, and then you're going to a couple popular Portland guys. Devin Booker is a good way to get away from some of that ownership, give yourself maintain a very high ceiling, even if it pulls down your median projection a bit. But at the same time, it's not somebody that I expect to go into the slate saying like, oh yeah, I'm playing 40% Devin Booker, because that would mean that I'm probably playing less of guys like Jokic or Randall or some of these other good pay up guys, Luka, that I also want to get to.
You like Chris Paul today?
Yeah, a little bit less than this morning, just because the Milwaukee news did mean you're going to be moving a bunch of ownership in that price range to Chris Middleton, albeit at different positions. But you're still getting 14% ownership coming into Paul. He was up around 20% this morning. But yeah, good price tag, good matchup. His ownership probably comes down a little bit too if Jalen Brunson gets ruled out, just because I think you'll see people prioritize Emmanuel quickly a little bit more than they are Jalen Brunson right now.
All right, so here we go. Utah Jazz. This should be fun because if Lauri Markkanen's out, knowing that Colin Sexton, Clarkson, Gay, even Fontecchio being out, if Markkanen sits, you're getting Agbayi, you're getting Olynyk, you're getting Kessler, you're getting THT. Who replaces Fontecchio in the starting lineup, given that he had been replacing Lauri Markkanen?
Yeah, good question. So we did just get Miles Turner and Tyrese Halliburton both ruled out. So we're going to have more value now from the Indiana side as well. But for Utah, I don't know. It could be anybody. They haven't really been wanting to play. So I mean, if Markkanen's in, it's Markkanen and none of this matters. But if Markkanen is out,
he's a game time decision, like a good chance he might sit.
Right. I think he went through shoot around today, but that could be wrong. But they haven't wanted to play Chris Dunn and Horton Tucker together all that much, but we have seen them close games together recently when Markkanen's been out. So maybe they go to Chris Dunn. Other than that, I don't know. Like, they can go to Jarrell Brantley. They could go to Toscano Anderson. They could go to Juzang. It's kind of a situation where if they don't want to go to Chris Dunn, there's no like definite next guy up because it's just kind of random dudes at that point.
Yeah. And they definitely could just go to Dunn. It's not that hard. Like you already have Olynyk and Kessler at the 4 and 5, and Markkanen was playing the 3. It's not, it's
the issue is just the lack of shooting when they have Horton Tucker and Dunn on the floor together.
Yeah, that's true for sure. We'll see.
Especially because you have Kessler too.
What's that?
Because you have Kessler.
Who doesn't shoot? Yeah. Well, right. Unless it's last game where he shoots 14 of 16.
Well, yeah, but all at the rim, I'm sure.
Of course. Yeah. No, he's not a threat in that sense. No.
Right. Like if you look at their rotations last game, you ended up getting 26 from Dunn, you got 28 from Horton Tucker. They didn't play a single minute next to each other in the first half. They didn't play next to each other at all until the fourth quarter when they both closed. So it's not like they refused to play them together entirely, but I don't know if they're going to want to actually play them that many minutes or if they're going to try and get to somebody that, can still space the floor a little bit better, which is why Agbaji plays so many minutes and why Fontecchio was out there.
I know this game could get out of control quickly, but in the event that Markkanen is out, does Kelly Olynyk just, get another 32 minutes? He almost triple-doubled last game. Like this dude, I mentioned this to you a couple on Friday. His potential is his assist opportunities with everybody out right now, really insane. The offense is running through him as a playmaker when he's out there. It's pretty wild, but the price tag that's a lofty salary today on Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah, it is. And Utah's kind of a tough team here because if Markkanen's in, I don't really have interest in anything other than Markkanen. If he's out, though, it makes the other Utah guys look better, but I still don't think it really makes anybody look great. Chris Dunn's up to 5,900. If he's starting, then sure, it's a really good sign for his minutes. But if he's still not starting, if Markkanen's out and Dunn is still not starting, it's a really good indicator that they're still not looking to play him and Horton Tucker together all that much outside of, maybe the closing lineup. So you're talking about $5,900 for somebody that's probably playing 25, 26 minutes on a slate where we just got TJ McConnell opening up for less, Nembhard's less. You have, all the Milwaukee stuff. We have Portland that we haven't talked about. It's still not going to really be a priority there. If he starts, certainly looks better. Horton Tucker will look a bit better at 7K if Markkanen's out, but still you're typically getting 28 to 30 minutes from him, and he's $7,000 now. Walker Kessler, of course, gives you a massive ceiling at 7,300, getting basically no ownership. But there's also a lot of centers in this price range not getting much ownership because you have so much of it being allocated to Nikola Jokic and Drew Eubanks, and now probably also Isaiah Jackson. So it makes this whole mid-range kind of interesting in tournaments, but it's not like Kessler stands out as head and shoulders better than going to somebody like Şengün or DeAndre Ayton on the other side of this game, or plenty of other guys that we're going to talk about. Lopez also getting a lot of the ownership. So there's guys that are decent tournament plays, but I don't really think anything's going to end up looking great, even if Markkanen's out. Maybe if you get Jarrell Brantley starting at 3,300, but even then, I'm not going to be overly confident in his playing time.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, right now, I think you're right. There's just not a whole lot there. And to your you mentioned earlier, Markkanen shoot around. He was spotted getting some shots up. So, I mean, who knows what that means? Right, Joel Embiid was a partial participant in shoot around this morning too, and we saw how that went.
Yeah, I mean, I did see video of Lauri Markkanen throwing balls over a beam in the ceiling from the other side of the court. It looked like he was working very hard.
That's good. All right. Philly, Denver. No Joel Embiid today. James Harden is expected to play. Mentioned this morning that Doc said against Phoenix, I think it was, whatever the last game was, that was a playoff game that Harden would have been out there. So clearly, just the precautionary, we'll sit him on these back-to-backs and we'll get him back out there. They're on an extended West Coast road trip. All of that makes sense. Tough schedule of games too, running the gauntlet right now. But Harden going to be very popular today. I don't anticipate him being limited in a spot like this. I think that's why they held him out until he was good. Paul Reed at 15%. Hey, if Doc doesn't hate this guy anymore, and if Paul Reed can manage to stay out of foul trouble, he is undoubtedly somebody that can put up ridiculous numbers. He's somebody that can give you the stocks, that can stuff a stat sheet across the board. You get 20 minutes from Paul Reed, usually you're going to be happy at minimum salary. But the question now is Is Doc going to actually play this guy Or if you remember this, they were playing DeAndre Jordan as a starter last year when Joel Embiid was out in the playoffs, and DeAndre Jordan just got shit on. And then Doc finally had to eat his hat and pull him off the floor. So all I'm saying is Paul Reed, in my opinion, is so long as Doc Rivers is the coach, is going to be a risky play, but also one in tournaments that has he has a really high ceiling at almost minimum salary.
Yeah, he does, because he's really cheap. He's a good point per minute guy. We have seen in the past that Doc prefers using Paul Reed against smaller centers, which is clearly not the case in this one. In the last game that Embiid missed, it was against the Heat on March 1st. You got a starting lineup with PJ Tucker at the 5. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that route here. You could also, I think, see them go to Dedmon. He soaked up some minutes the other day when Embiid didn't play that second half. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go there and then use Reed as the backup center. But to your point, at 3,200, if he just plays 18, 19 minutes, which is about what we have him projected for, he's still going to look good just because he's such a good point per minute guy. Overall this season, a little over a fantasy point per minute on DraftKings, 1.11 FanDuel points per minute. So if he's coming off the bench, which I assume that he will, getting 18 to 19 minutes or so is going to project as a good value. The problem, though, is going to be that you're giving up a center position on a slate that has a lot of very good centers.
Isn't it kind of amazing, though, that even when you take Joel Embiid out of this lineup, there's nobody that really pops? Like Maxey, we still have its single-digit ownership. I'll tell you what, Maxey intrigues me here because we actually saw instances where Joel Embiid was out earlier this year, Harden and Max. How many? I should look at that to see. Max, if you could pull it up too, that'd be great. Usually you run them quicker than I do. If with Joel Embiid out and Harden and Maxey in,
1.14 DraftKings points per minute, 37 minutes per game for Maxey in 7 games.
For Maxey. And what was the usage though? Because if I recall correctly, Maxey was the gunner. He was the one that was getting up higher usage rate than Harden in those spots.
26.3% usage for Maxey, 19.7% assist percentage. For Harden, 27.7% usage rate, 37.7% assist percentage.
Clearly not saying Maxey's a better play than Harden. What I'm saying is their usage is almost identical there. So, I mean, what's it, 1% off?
Yeah. The usage is about the same. You're getting way more assist opportunities for Harden, as you would expect. But yeah, like the reason Maxey's not getting more ownership is just because he's the same price as Chris Middleton. He's more expensive at the guard position than Chris Paul. He's similarly priced to Brunson, who's going to look good. He's more expensive than Quickly if Brunson gets ruled out. Ownership hasn't updated for the Indiana news, but now you're going to have some of that going to TJ McConnell as well. So it's just like, it's a correct price tag. It's also not a very appealing matchup in Denver. Agreed. But I completely agree with you that at 10% ownership, you're talking about somebody averaging over a fantasy point per minute and averaging close to 40 minutes, likely to play close to 40 minutes if this game's competitive. The upside is certainly there for him.
He's also somebody that when he's off, he's off. When he's on, he might knock down 6 threes and just go nuts. So, yeah, 8.9% ownership on Maxey. That might come down even further. I'm not really sure there's anything else to talk about unless you wanted to get some Tobias Harris.
Yeah, I mean, it makes Harris look a little bit better as well, but his price tags also come up. That is the one thing is, with Harden being out for several games recently, this isn't a situation where you're getting a bunch of really, really cheap guys. I did just want to go back and look at that Chicago game from the 22nd because Embiid didn't play the second half. Paul Reed did start that one, and that was against Vooch. So, maybe they do go to Paul Reed here. He's still only in that second half, played about 11 minutes. Dwayne Dedmon played about 10 minutes, and then you got garbage time at the end where Montrezl Harrell played. But maybe they go to Reed as a starter. I think you still have to be cautious with his minutes. But if he's coming off the bench, expecting something like 18, 19 minutes makes sense. If he's starting, I think going to like 22 makes sense. And either way, he's cheap enough where he does have a very clear ceiling for that price.
Nikola Jokic should destroy whoever Doc runs out there today. Like this, he should.
I mean, I saw when I was talking about, potential starting lineups, I saw somebody in chat say like, kind of like, I think imply that they can't go to Tucker at the 5. Like they don't have an answer. There's no like one individual answer that they're going to. Like they're going to have their hands full anyway. It doesn't matter if you go with PJ Tucker or a taller guy that can't defend. Like there's not an answer.
I would throw Paul Reed out there because he's a super high motor guy. Let him get into foul trouble. Like let him foul out. Just let him foul out and see what he can do.
Right. I mean, I kind of think they go Dedmon.
I think you're right. And it's not the worst thing you could do, but none of it's going to work. No. I'm just saying with Paul Reed, he's kind of an unknown quantity in the sense that maybe you throw him out there and he grabs some blocks and steals, you know what I mean? And he's a disruptor. But
yeah. And also, as far as the size thing goes too, he weighs like 35 pounds less than PJ Tucker does.
Who does?
Reed.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying Reed's that big at all.
No, I know. I was saying, to just the thought process of
saying
like
that Tucker can't
that they can't go Tucker. Like Paul Reed is not big either.
Tucker's also very physical for his size.
Oh yeah. Tucker. I mean, Tucker
when it comes to being able to defend a big.
Yeah, Tucker's been defending guys much bigger than him for a very long time.
He played the 5 in Houston for like a whole season. You remember that?
Right. Oh yeah.
And they were they were such a bad rebounding team that nobody was even remotely close. Like their starting center was 6'7" for like 70 games. They could not rebound. Oh man, that was good stuff.
Because what was it? Him and Covington? Was Covington on that team?
I think it was him, Covington.
I know like the whole lineup was like 6'5" or shorter.
Paul was still there, right? No, was Paul still there?
I don't think so. Maybe.
I'd have to go. Someone can pull that up. It was like 4 years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Whatever it was, they were tied. It was the smallest starting 5 you're ever going to see. And it didn't work. If they weren't hitting threes, they were getting run off the floor. But
they were really fun though. I enjoyed that.
They were super fun. Because when they were playing well, I'm just saying, like, if you go up against a good rebounding team and you're missing shots, you're getting 0 offensive rebounds.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just getting destroyed. But, yeah, Jokic should feast in this spot. And I wonder
SMP said it was the COVID season. It was Russ and Harden.
Oh, really? Okay. I wonder if Jokic is going to come out there and be like, all right, Joe, you don't want to play? I'm going to go drop like a 30, 20, 10 triple-double today just to improve.
I think Embiid kind of woke Jokic up with his comments, just based on I saw Jokic say something earlier that I don't remember the quote, but it kind of just reading in between the lines, it seemed like a dig at Embiid also.
Okay, it's hard not to like Jokic today. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I mean, really good spot. There's no answer on the Philadelphia side. He was going to be a good play anyway because he's only $11,400, but now looks even better. Doesn't have to deal with Embiid on either end of the floor. So 11-4 is going to look great. You do have plenty of value centers, as we've talked about, whether that's Reed or Eubanks, whether it's going to Brook Lopez in the mid-range, along with plenty of other mid-range guys. But one of the top projected guys on the slate, we actually have him slightly ahead of Luka, so we have him as the highest projected guy on the slate tonight. Actually projected to go a little bit under owned, 26% chance of being optimal, 19% projected ownership for Jokic.
Anything else you're interested in for Denver? And I should point out that Michael Porter Jr. is questionable.
Murray's fine, Gordon's fine, but nothing else that really stands out here, especially because we did get other value opening up. You and I talked about it this morning. Bruce Brown was pulling like 17% ownership for random reasons. He's down to 4% now that we've gotten other value opening up. But any of the non-Jokic guys, Gordon, Murray, KCP, Porter, if he's in, Brown, like they play enough minutes for their salaries that they could certainly have good games, but none of them really stand out. Outside of Jokic, I think Murray would be the guy that I want to get to the most, and he's only pulling 6% ownership.
5 down, 3 to go. Making good time today. Okay, we'll definitely have to spend some time with a few of these other spots. We haven't gotten through it yet, but that's okay. We got almost 2,100 people watching with us. Appreciate you guys hanging out on a Monday night. And as I mentioned earlier, for those of you that were in here as we started the show, today's show is sponsored by Bet365. Now, it's not for everybody. Soon, maybe it will be. But if you're in Colorado, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, you're in luck because the best sportsbook promo that I've ever seen since I've been sports betting, I've never seen a promo like this. Even when books first came online and became legal in PA, never seen anything like this. You bet $1, you get $365 in bonus bets. You bet $1, you get $365 in bonus bets. I told you Adam and I were on the strategy show the other day, and someone's like, "Yeah, I thought it was bullshit because it seems insane, but I did it because it was $1." And now my account says 386. So he must have put that dollar on a massive long shot and won that as well. But all you have to do, and by the way, $10, you deposit 10, you only have to bet one of those dollars. 10% of that $10, $1. The bet does not need to win. Okay. The link is in the description and in chat if you're looking to take advantage of it. You can't miss it. $1. Doesn't need to win as long as it settles, and it will. $365 in bonus bets. You could go on and lose every cent of this. And at the end of the day, you lose zero sleep because you spent $1. The downside is literally nothing in a spot like this. Or you could take advantage of it, run it up to 4 or 5 figures, and be swimming in it because you deposited $10 and bet one. And someone asked me the other day, I think it's important, got to be transparent here. They're like, what's the playthrough requirement on this? Because some books are sneaky like that. Some books, it's like you got to play through 47 times, Adam. You know how that goes.
Yep.
Or they have like these garbage drip bonuses that they used to have on all these books or on like DFS sites. The playthrough is 1x, which is crazy for a $365 bonus on $1. So Colorado, New Jersey, Virginia, Ohio, certainly wouldn't suggest driving across the border if you're close, but if you're in those states, one of those 4, take advantage of it. Who knows how long it lasts, but it's the best promo out there. Link in the description and in chat.
Do you know if you have to be a resident or just physically in the state?
I don't know, but I might take a shot. I mean, I might just.
Didn't you say Pennsylvania?
What?
Didn't you say Pennsylvania?
It's coming to PA.
Oh, okay.
And I will for sure jump on that. It's a
yeah. Well, I mean, I live 30 minutes from Pennsylvania, so
right. Maybe next time in Jersey, I'll just pull it up and see what happens, because $365 in 1 minute to sign up and place a bet. Close your eyes. Don't matter what it is. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, must be 21 years or older to gamble. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Mandatory disclaimer there. Let's talk some basketball. Minnesota, Sacramento. We got no Karl Anthony Towns. Edwards is questionable now too. I assume he plays. I'm assuming he's going to be active, but that's another piece of news that we have to wait for. You had mentioned Kyle Anderson today with the starting lineup, given that now Towns is out again, but there's nobody really pulling ownership, even though this game has a 238 total and has the potential to really shoot out. How do you want to play it in tournaments?
It's a really interesting tournament game to me. Anthony Edwards is the only guy from Minnesota the only guy in this game right now getting double-digit ownership, and that makes sense to me. He's a little bit underpriced at 8,800, shooting guard, small forward eligible. No Karl Anthony Towns opens up some usage for Edwards. He just looks like a very high upside play here in a great matchup. But Rudy Gobert is certainly one of these mid-range centers that I've been alluding to that I think has a very high ceiling. He's pulling 9% ownership. We got 34 minutes from him last game. Even if you expect 30 to 31, he's been about a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy since Mike Conley joined the team. And there is certainly the potential for him to play more minutes here. We know Sacramento has a center that is very difficult to defend. Maybe we see Gobert pick up some more minutes for defensive reasons, who knows, but really high ceiling for him here against a center in Sabonis that does not play defense, a team in general that does not play defense. Kyle Anderson should move back into the starting lineup. He's likely to give you low to mid 30s in minutes. He is still relatively expensive at 6,900, but you can't argue that he doesn't have a ceiling. The guy's been flirting with triple doubles pretty much night in and night out prior to Karl Anthony Towns' return. So I think, all 3 of those guys are interesting in tournaments. McDaniels and Conley probably a little bit less interesting just because they don't have quite the same, upside, but it's a really good matchup and just a team that's not pulling ownership. The hell was that?
If Edwards sits, does anybody become a massive priority here in the event that he's out and we already have no Towns?
You would see, more production from Kyle Anderson. It would make Mike Conley look better. It would make Jaden McDaniels look better. We did see him take on a bigger offensive role recently when Edwards and Towns were both out also. So, it would just open up, better value from Minnesota.
Sacramento on the other side of this game. De'Aaron Fox is going to play. There's not a lot going on here either. If you wanted to get some Sabonis in tournaments, you're always live for a strong triple double in a spot like this. And aside from that, though, it's just like, it's funny when you find these games that have the highest total on the slate, but there's so much value elsewhere given the injuries that the total doesn't really play as heavily. It doesn't have as much weight. You know what I mean? Because so many other games, you're just getting cheaper price tags, more minutes, higher usage on guys that are underpriced, mispriced because of injuries. Yeah.
And it creates a really interesting tournament scenario. Like, I don't mind even, trying to get, not that I think you have to set a rule to force it or anything, but like maybe in your Edwards lineups, especially if like you're building by hand or something, or like in a tiebreaker situation, maybe, bumping Fox's projection a little bit or bumping Sabonis's a little bit, just trying to create a situation where if this game does just like score 20 points more than anything else on the slate, you're kind of maximizing your exposure to it within a given lineup. We don't talk about game stacking in the NBA a lot, and it's because typically you don't really need to, but games like this, it always, that idea is interesting to me, just because you can kind of maximize your upside by doing it, and you're just getting a bunch of low-owned players from the same game that certainly has the potential to just be much higher scoring than anything else. But individually, Fox and Sabonis both look really good in tournaments from the Kings side. Neither one getting much ownership, and I get it. Like, you only have to find $1,100 to get from Sabonis to Jokic, and he projects quite a bit better. De'Aaron Fox, is a little bit more expensive than some of these other point guards we talked about, but you're likely getting 37 minutes or so from Sabonis if this game's competitive, and he has a massive ceiling. You said it, I think, this morning, that he's sort of Nikola Jokic light in what he gives you from a fantasy standpoint. De'Aaron Fox likely playing 35 minutes or so, potential track meet of a game, which suits him really, really well. So I like the lack of ownership coming into those guys. Other than that, there's not much I like from Sacramento. If you happen to land on one of the wings here and there, that's fine. But Fox and Sabonis are the really interesting pieces.
All right. That's not right. Let me check something real quick here just to make sure that this is fake news in chat. All right, yeah, fake news. So, I'll tell you. I was gonna tell you something, but we're running short on time, so I'll spare the tangents here. New Orleans Pelicans, Portland Trail Blazers. So yeah, the Pels opened up at 8.5. It's 11.5. I pounced on that last night too. We're at 11.5 now. There's no way these guys for Portland were going to play. Watch, Pelicans are just going to lose outright now.
Right.
But 4% Joval, and I know there's opportunity cost. I understand that, but 4% Joval, the guy, if it's even in blowouts, he's played 34 and 33 minutes. Would have played 36 in one of them. 3 straight blowouts. They've won 4 straight. He's playing huge minutes. Maybe it's true. Maybe Larry Nance is hurt. I don't know. Like, maybe he really is banged up, and that's why they're giving Joval these minutes. Or Joval's just playing fantastic basketball. I even bet the 15 plus points and 12 plus rebounds at plus 163. He's done it in 5 straight games since he started getting more run. But yeah, DFS is different because you have a price tag on him. He's 4% right now against the skeleton crew Portland Trailblazers team with no use of Nurkic, Lillard, Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons, and likely no Watford.
Yeah, it's just another high upside center. The price tag has come up a bit, and so certainly not as appealing as maybe he was on some other recent slates, but he's similar to Gobert and Şengün and just these other mid-range centers that are getting no ownership because people are going to, and rightfully so, but going to these other very, very popular centers. There's so many, and this is why I said Lopez of the Milwaukee guys that are popular is probably the guy I'll be the furthest away from the field on. And it's just because there's so many centers to choose from that just aren't getting ownership, where your median projection comes down a bit, but your ceiling remains extremely high. And Joval's another one of those. Nance said he was banged up. I have no idea how he's feeling now. He said that like 10 days ago, but it has also coincided with him not really getting that many minutes. Like you said, Joval's also been playing really well. The Pels have been winning. They need to keep winning. Not to say that Joval's never going to disappoint us again. I'm sure that he will, but the playing time has been very, very good for him. And if you could guarantee 32 to 34 minutes, he'd be certainly more than 4% owned here. The ownership reflects the risk. So he's just another guy where it's a pretty interesting way to be contrarian.
Right. And at this rate, the tide has turned a little. He's been pacing a ton of minutes over his last 5. Until he's not, I just have to assume that he's going to keep playing big minutes until he isn't. We'll see. What do you want to do with Ingram and the rest of this team tonight?
Yeah, I mean, Ingram and McCollum both look pretty good as well. Not priorities just because they are a little bit more expensive than other pieces, but 16% ownership coming into Ingram, no issues with that. 4% to McCollum makes him, an interesting tournament play. Ingram's getting more just because, mostly because he's a small forward. And outside of Middleton, we just really haven't talked about any good mid-range forwards that we've liked. It's all been guards. It's all been centers. So you're going to see more ownership and a higher optimal percentage come into Ingram.
Portland Trail Blazers, Nasir Little, 80%. Drew Eubanks, 47%. Shaden Sharp, 30%. Keon Johnson, 18%. With Watford out, or is he still doubtful? I think he's still doubtful. Yeah. Him doubtful. No Yusuf Nurkic. Again, no Jeremy Grant, no Anthony Simons, no Damian Lillard. And I would anticipate this from the rest of the season for at least 4 of those guys, not Watford. I mean, you're just going to have to get to a lot of Portland today. I'm not sure there's any two ways around this. Like they're running low, they're running short on bodies, and everybody's dirt cheap. Now I see a little's $3,800 with multi-position eligibility.
Yeah, it's an absurd price tag on Little. We saw him start the second half last game after Watford left. He ended up playing 31 minutes in that game. He's not the best point per minute guy, but it's not like he's terrible. You're not talking about, PJ Tucker or somebody, Daniel House, guys like that. Nas Little, I'm pulling it up now, but I think is like a 0.75, 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, 0.71 for the season in 853 minutes played. That probably comes up a little bit also when you're playing with a bunch of other guys that don't play offense. So it's just a really cheap price tag. And then also a really weak position. Like I was just saying with Brandon Ingram, we just haven't talked about small forwards that we like other than Middleton and Ingram, basically. So naturally, that's just going to be a position that you look to punt because it's going to open up getting to Jokic at center. It's going to open up getting to some of those mid-range point guards or getting to Luka at point guard. So it's just naturally going to be a position where people pay down a lot. And that's why you have a 72% optimal percentage on Nas Little. It's not that Nas Little's a great player or anything. It's just that he's really cheap. The minutes should be there. And he's at a position where the opportunity cost is the lowest, really.
All right. Can I get your take on this real quick? I said I wouldn't go off the rails, but can I get your take on this? Okay, good. I want you to tell me. And Dez, appreciate you, man. I know you're in here every night. Not positive I believe you, though. So let's get a ruling from Adam. Des Morris, I'm on the highway in traffic with this show blasting, and someone just heard the show and shouted out Laffy and Ship. I'm calling bullshit. I don't believe
no chance. Did not happen.
No, there's no chance. No way. Des, you're a good man. Appreciate you hanging out. Go find them. Find them.
Said that person with cats.
No, he'd be listening through the window and be like, actually, Jonas Valanciunas is only projected for 26 minutes tonight because they're going to go small in Portland.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, no way. We'll be cool. I've been recognized in person a few times, and it's odd, but it's like the most few and far between.
It still actually hasn't happened to me.
Really? Bought a cell phone off a guy that knew who I was. Yeah.
I mean, outside of like live finals, like live finals, like people that I don't know will come up and like know who I am, but like but it hasn't like happened in an it hasn't like been in an airport or anything.
Yeah, nothing in the wild. All right. Ryan said you bought a cell phone? ? Rimpack said that. What do you mean?
Does Rimpack not have a cell phone?
I don't know. This was years ago, though. This was many years ago. This was like 2017 or something. All right. Anything else on Portland, or we want to wrap this up with Chicago and the Clippers?
Yeah, I mean, for the rest of Portland, Eubanks pulling a ton of ownership, played 32 minutes last game, should play a bunch here. Massive opportunity cost. It's kind of like the Mamukelashvili spot the other day, except for Eubanks' minutes are probably actually a little bit more secure. But it's similar in that he's a very, very good point per dollar play. But if he were to go out there and score like 28 DraftKings points, even though that's like 7x, it probably is actually actively hurting your team because your lineup rather, because you're very likely to see a couple of these mid-range guys just beat that by 20 to 30 actual points or fantasy points. But it's still clearly a good value, still clearly a good play. Shedon Sharp's got a 28% usage rate in the 3 games that he's played without Grant, Lillard, and Simons this year. His price tag's come up, but he's still going to play big minutes. He's still going to get up a bunch of shots. He's also probably going a bit over-owned, but still a good play. Keon Johnson off the bench, likely to give you low 20s in minutes, 4,300. Yeah, it's just a good team to get to in general.
Jazzy said, nice modesty, Laffy. I was being modest. I'm saying there's no chance that happened. That's all. I think that's pretty modest. I'm pretty confident Adam and I know where we stand as far as like the public eye goes, which doesn't exist outside of DFS circles.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still, it's always humbling. Like I'll be out at a bar and people, will be talking about like what I do for work or whatever, and they'll ask like, what site, and I always expect them to at least like recognize the site, but like 90% of the time they don't even know like what I'm talking about.
No, but if you said like Fantasy Pros or the fantasy football sites, that's different because so many more people play fantasy football than DFS.
Right. Yeah, and season long stuff too.
That's what I mean. Fantasy
Right.
football, like just straight season long stuff for sure. All right. Anyway, it wasn't sarcasm. My fault, Jazzy. My fault. All right, let's go. Des Morris, I'm on 76. Well, if you're on 76, I'll believe one thing. You're in traffic because 76 is the worst fucking road ever designed in the history of roads, and it's terrible. So you got one of two so far, Des. You've proven one of two. Chicago and the Clippers. Let's round this one out. By the way, like I said, new and existing users, all of our tools for MLB. MLB's back. We decided to run a promo, 50% off everything. That includes the lineup generator in that subscription. All sports, all tools, 50% off for the month, whether you're new or you've been paying full price. Next month is 50% off. Link in the description and in chat. It's done on the 2nd of April, so take advantage. Portland is done. Let's go to Chicago. Is there anything that intrigues you here against the Clippers today with a healthy Chicago team? Caruso questionable, but that's it.
There really isn't. I mean, it's your usual. If you get to Vooch, Levine, DeRozan, cool. Like, don't change your lineups. They're high upside contrarian plays, but just really, really difficult to get much of any of them. Caruso's cheap, but we don't really need that cheap value all that much anymore. If he's in and you decide you want to like use him instead of Javon Carter to save ownership in a lineup here or there, sure, but Carter clearly looks better. I think it's one of the least appealing teams on the slate. I think that they're more appealing than Detroit simply because Detroit doesn't have guys like Vooch, Levine, DeRozan. But I would say that in terms of like the exposure I expect to get to them, they're pretty similar.
MJ Hiding said, I was taking a shit at the strip club and heard the dude in the stall next to me listening to Live Before Lock and both shouted, atone for your sins. That's fantastic. Good stuff, man. Where am I at here? Steve, will there be a lineup generator for MLB? Yeah, that's in the works. That's in the works for sure.
Kleba's out for Dallas.
Okay. All right. D Fick, member for 15 months, free super chat. Thanks, man. Take 1-2 from Indy, Milwaukee, and Portland, or different lineup with 3-4. Do you know what he means by that?
Take 1-2 from Indy, Milwaukee, and Portland. I assume he's asking like if he should be using 1-2 guys from each of those popular teams, or if he should only be using like 4 from those popular teams. I don't think that there's like a correct answer to that. It sort of depends on the actual ownership of the players in question. I'm not setting any sort of like restrictions either way. I'm not saying like, oh, I need at least one guy from all these teams. I'm not saying like I can only have 4 from those teams. So if I'm reading it correctly, I think it's still just it's just not how I look at building a lineup. Like, it's still going to depend on what the actual individual ownership is of the players I'm taking from those teams, what the individual ownership is of the players that aren't on those teams. That's if I'm getting very low owned guys elsewhere, it's going to allow me to get more of those teams, for example. So it's still kind of just like a case by case thing.
Wrap it up with the Clippers. Not a lot here. We'll turn it over to Greg and Neil. By the way, we're 90 likes away from 500. I blame it on myself. Been slacking. I haven't mentioned it since the beginning of the show. Just like the guy shitting in the stall at the strip club, atone for your sins, my friends, and wash yourselves clean. In all seriousness, if you forgot, we forgive. It happens. But now we're 86 away. I think we have this. We have about 30 seconds to go. So I need 80 of you 2,500 people out here to show us some love and get us north of 500. So I should now no longer be ashamed of myself. All right, Clippers, wrap us up, man. Anything here that's moderately interesting to you?
Kawhi?
By the way, Chicago playing at a 95 pace since the start of March.
Yeah, they've been playing incredibly slow, which is why, there isn't more interest in the Clippers. I do think Kawhi is interesting just because, again, small forward, we've talked about, we like Ingram, we like Middleton, we like Little. I don't know that we've talked about another small forward. Kawhi is 10-1, getting 5% ownership. If you were to go with Drew Eubanks for value, and then, some of these other value pieces that are popular, like Javon Carter, you're going to have plenty of salary to get to Kawhi at a weak position. And, I said it when we talked about Little, that a big reason he's such a good play is that there's not a lot to like at small forward, so the opportunity cost is low. The flip side of that roster construction is that you can play Kawhi and potentially get a forward that scores like, 20, 30 points more than like every other forward. And if that happens, you have a contrarian roster construction that is doing really well. So I like the idea of Kawhi. Again, I think it's, relatively difficult to get to, but he's interesting to me. Other than that, I don't really see much.
All right, that'll do it. 560 likes. You guys are the greatest. I'm telling you just trust your people here, and we get the job done. Follow Adam at Ship My Money DFS. Me at Lafayette_D. Shout out to Jordan Klein for producing this one. I'll close the show on a super chat before we turn this one over. Power Books said, I believe it. You guys are big time and deservedly so. I've been a listener for several years. Always great content and very versed in all sports. Keep up the good work. Thank you, man. Much appreciated. We are not big time, but we appreciate it. And in the world of DFS, who knows? Maybe the deeper dive in Live Before Lock. I don't know. Stick around. Live Before Lock coming up next. Peace. Yo, what's good, everybody? We are back. We took a week off, but we are back with the Stochastic Hall of Fame, and we have some monster wins spread across this one this week. Very excited to get into it, to give away some free months of Stochastic Plus Platinum and induct all of you fine people into the Hall of Fame. If you're trying to get in on this, get that free month, $120 value, get inducted, featured, bragged for right here in the Hall of Fame segment. All you got to do, download the Stochastic avatar, the profile picture at stochastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins to Stochastic Hall of Fame or Stochastic HOF on Twitter. Get that free month and get inducted, just like everybody that we're going to talk about today. And we've got some huge ones, starting it off with Dylan Strickland. How about Dylan? Shipped to 50K on the first day of March Madness with a single entry, thanks to our boy Matt Gajeski. 50K up top in the 150K tourney tip-off for Dylan Strickland. Huge way to start it off today, but it only gets crazier because you have Bob Crematola, who just, when this guy goes on heaters, he goes on heaters. And he said it's officially on a heater. Got it thanks to Stochastic and the great tools they provide. Also, many thanks to the boys for their great content on the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock yesterday. 50K for Bob as well, or Bobby Nissan. And it looks like actually 7 entries, $5,900 in entry fees, $89,600. Another monster win for Bob. Keep it going, man. And how about our own Steve Buzzard? You think he's using these tools? I can tell you right now, he's using the Stochastic tools. Not quite Hall of Fame worthy, but anytime I can finish 5th in a super stack DraftKings live final, I'll take it. $200,000 to the Colts. Steve Buzzard, monster win, almost $250,000. Congrats, man. That's huge. Taking it home for Team Stochastic, or close to it. And how about our own Josh Engelman? Fun little Saturday, he says. UFC, it came down. He needed everything that he got. Came down to the wire. $80,000. Chopping first place with a couple people for $80K on Saturday afternoon. And you wonder if we have good NHL content. Well, how about Josh? How about Josh Harris? Is it Josh Day at Stochastic, apparently? Not $80K, but in the NHL streets, this is about equivalent. $5,800 for Josh as well. And then you got Noah Levinson. The Stochastic lineup generator, I told you guys, has itself another win. Thanks to Greg Ehrenberg, Eric Lindquist for the advice on all the shows at Stochastic Hall of Fame. $2,000 in the end one. Love it, man. And if you keep this one rolling, you got Joey Foley. I want to thank the Stochastic guys again, but it's been a while. All the guys and anyone I forgot. I made over $1,000 in profit last night. Here's a couple screenshots. 500, 175, 35, first, second, and 5th place. Good stuff, Joey. Keep it moving. And how about Lemons? Not a bad ROI on the jukebox last night. Not at all. 3rd place into $125. I told you guys, it could be the $20. It could be a 10 cents entry, quarter, $1. Doesn't matter. As long as you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, you're getting in. You're getting the free month. You're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, just like Pat Damon to wrap this one up. Thanks to Live Before Lock, gents, for helping me place third out of 33,000 in this Wednesday 8K fadeaway. 25 cents into $100. Crazy return. Appreciate all you guys rocking the avatar. Enjoy the months. Enjoy the bragging rights right here on the Hall of Fame. And remember, tweet those wins to Stochastic HOF. Get that free month, and we'll see you back here next week for another edition.
What is happening, everybody, and welcome. It is another Stochastic NBA Live Before Lock Monday night. Myself and Neil Orfield about to be breaking down the slate. Neil, the flannel god himself in his, what is it? Is it the XFL hat today?
I am wearing my XFL hat. We got an XFL game starting at the same time as NBA Lock, so pretty exciting night for me.
Which is your priority? Which are you more excited for?
XFL. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I mean, XFL, you only get 4 games per week. I get to get back to football showdown. So it's it's more of a priority for me.
Yeah, so Neil is probably going to be crunching some XFL lineups while also working on NBA.
I already crunched them. And there were no inactives that really surprised me. So yeah, I'm good.
How often is there breaking news in XFL that changes stuff? Or is it just there's news that never gets reported and you find out in the third quarter or something?
That has not really happened this year. There's usually not breaking news like leading up to a slate because they have the same thing as NFL where they put out their inactives about an hour before the slate. So not too much breaking news.
Well, I'll tell you where there is going to be a lot of breaking news. NBA tonight, as is the usual at this point of the year. And by the way, also shout out to Bet365 sponsoring our show today. And as you guys come in, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Here is why I assume we're going to be getting some NBA news. The current players listed on the injury report as questionable: Anthony Edwards, I believe Neil has heard of him before, Lauri Markkanen, Jalen Brunson. Those are the key, most important players on the injury report. But then we also got guys like Michael Porter Jr. is questionable, Alex Caruso questionable, Corey Joseph questionable, Rodney McGruder. So other guys that are role players that could open up value on other role players. So a lot of stuff that we're going to be keeping our eyes on as we go over just all the different spots on the show. One thing that is pretty crazy, though, Rudy Gobert isn't questionable anymore. That's something that the Timberwolves have done away with. Have you taken notice of this? They figured out you don't have to listen to questionable every day.
I hadn't even noticed that. Maybe it was just because Cat came back and they were like, oh yeah, they looked at their injury report to be like, hey, Cat's coming back. And they're, oh yeah, we can edit some of these things.
But no Cat today. He's out. And then the other big news that is just driving people insane on social media is that Joel Embiid is not going to be playing for the big matchup against Nikola Jokic, which of course is people up in arms because there's any angle that people get to complain, talk about the MVP race. It gets woven into, especially the ESPN type, social media, all of it. Just people go crazy about anything related to the MVP race. So no Joel Embiid in Denver against the Nuggets. And if I'm not mistaken, I was seeing it something like it's been a few years since he's played a game in Denver. He almost always sits these ones out. So people up in arms. Is Joel Embiid, is he ducking Nikola Jokic? Is he trying to make sure that Jokic can't catch ground on him in the MVP race or anything like that? I just think he's hurt. I think it's as simple as that. I think he's hurt and he can't play basketball today. So he's not going to, but that's going to open up a lot of value on the 76ers that we are about to talk about. We got some super chats coming in as well. Is there any just overarching thoughts or anything you want to bring up about the slate in general before we get into it, Neil?
Yeah, well, we finally got some breaking news that impacts the slate with Maxi Kleber being ruled out. That'll change everything. No, it's a slate with a ton of value because we've had breaking news all day. It's just the slate has been flipped on its head multiple times. We've got players with over 8x value. We had a slate the other day where it was like 5.5x value was the best we could find on the entire board. We have just players who project really well point per dollar and from a variety of teams, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, and by the way, not all that crazy. Like, that's something you're just going to expect to see every slate this part of year is lots of value opening up and stuff changing as the night goes along. One thing I will say for today, which is going to be a little bit different from some recent slates, I don't feel like this is a slate where I have to take the early players out of my player pool in the same way I have for some other ones. Like, there's a lot of important injury news, but not to the point where I feel like, oh, I can't play Dallas, Indiana, Milwaukee, Detroit. In fact, I feel like I have to play Milwaukee, Detroit, because of the players that are out for Milwaukee. Is that kind of how you feel about this as well?
Yeah, exactly. It's more about who's in the early games, and there are players that you just really want to play from those games. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, we've got Giannis and Drew Holiday out for the Bucks. We'll be talking about what we're going to be doing with that situation as we go. If you guys have questions for us in Discord, at me so we can answer those throughout the show. But let's start by getting into some of the super chats that are sitting here waiting for us. First, H wants to know, sometimes get nervous a smaller prize pool entry will score enough to have won the big GPP. How do you deal with opportunity cost anxiety? Thanks. For me, poorly. I always feel like at the end of the day that I should have won more money than I did. And I'm always like, oh, I should have played this in this contest or this in this contest. The only thing I could say to you is you're going to deal with it. It's just going to happen no matter what. Even if you come in second in a GPP, you're going to think you should have come in first. If you come in first in a GPP, you're going to think you should have come in first in another GPP. It's just kind of how it works. That's how my mindset works. How to deal with it is just accept it's a reality and understand that it's going to happen as you go. And no different than, so there's a lot of stuff that people ask me, how do you deal with in betting or DFS? Like, how do you deal with a prolonged losing streak? How do you deal with a prolonged winning streak? Because some people think that, oh, I've won 3 days in a row, I have to up the ante by 2x or whatever. I try to just accept that you are going to go on streaks where you win a few days in a row. You're going to go on streaks where you lose a few days in a row. You're going to go on streaks where you're going to be super profitable for a month. You might go on a streak where you have a losing month or losing 2 months. And if you accept and you understand that is what is going to happen going in, it's pretty hard to deal. It's pretty easy to deal with because you already know that you've set that as the standard as an expectation going in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me, and I'm with you. It's something that I've always historically only played the largest field GPP, but recently I've started playing the like $4 where it's 15K up top. And you just gotta, if you have a lineup that's good enough to win the 100K, you're probably gonna win that 15K. It's still a really nice payout for what you're putting in. Just be happy for what you can win. If you don't have enough to play in the $15, I think it's like you said, it's just something you have to kind of accept. Like you're not playing that contest. It's hard to deal with. I get it. I have the same struggle sometimes, but you just got to play in the contest that's best for you.
Yeah, ultimately, it's not the other thing too. Pretty short-term memory. Like I don't remember like yesterday's slate. Not like actively. I just don't remember what's happened on a lot of the previous slates. Also, you get to a certain point where you've played so many hundreds and thousands of slates across different sports that you kind of forget what happens naturally on some of the other slates, and you just kind of move on with it. But totally reasonable question there, H. Corey Shea wants to know chalk that you are underweight to tonight. So I do have some lineups built out. And Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, I know Corey is a DK player, so I know that's what he is asking us about. But Jordan, can you pull up some of the ownership on screen? And I could tell you guys relative to my current ownership, some of the players that I am underweight to. And then Neil, if you wouldn't mind, you want to look at the boom bust tool and let people know like which individual players might be the most over-owned on the slate.
Yep. And so I've got the boom bust tool.
Okay, cool.
Okay. If you want me to start, I'm happy to.
Sure.
So it's funny. You ask who we are going to be the most underweight to, and I see that the player with the most negative leverage on the slate is actually Javon Carter, and I'm not sure I'm going to be underweight to Javon Carter. So it's it's not really answering the question. Javon Carter we've got coming in at 67% ownership, 40% chance to be optimal, so negative 27% leverage. But I still think I'm probably going to end up close to the field on Javon Carter just because it's such a good spot. It feels like it can't miss. Obviously, that's probably wrong, but I think I'm actually probably going to be about or even with the field, maybe even above the field on Javon Carter. How are you playing Javon Carter, Greg?
Yeah, so I currently have a good amount of Javon Carter. He's in more than half my lineups. And, you just look at the Bucks situation. There's no Drew Holiday. There's no Giannis. He's really cheap. And I just don't think there's that much opportunity cost to playing him at a point guard spot either. The player that stands out the most to me relative to their ownership right now is Brook Lopez, as somebody who I'm a pretty good amount underweight to. There are so many centers that are popular. There are so many center eligible players in general. And I guess we don't even have to include Bobby Portis in this because you're playing the power forward. But if you look at the 10 most popular players on the slate, it includes Drew Eubanks. It includes Isaiah Jackson. It includes Brook Lopez. It includes Nikola Jokic. You could only have a lot of exposure to so many centers because of just the way that position is so much more rigid than the other ones. So with that in mind, I'm pretty underweight to the field on Brook Lopez. And it's not because I don't project him well, but it's because I prioritize, if I go through my center exposures right now, Bobby Portis, mentioned him, he has center eligibility. But I also like Isaiah Jackson more than Brook Lopez relative to price. Drew Eubanks. I like Nikola Jokic a ton on this slate. I think Jokic is somebody who, I mean, you can't say he's going underlooked considering he's projected for 25% ownership. But I am well overweight to the field on Jokic because, number one, he's not hard to get to today. We have so much value. You could pay up for anybody. And I think this is just going to be a really easy matchup for him with Joel Embiid out for the Philadelphia 76ers. One of the hardest things to project for in all of NBA DFS is when a player is ruled out, how is that going to impact the players on the other side of the game? You know, it's not that hard to look at on-off court numbers, be like, oh, look, this player's usage goes up. This guy's assist rate goes up when certain players off the court. It is kind of hard to know, though, if a player like Joel Embiid, how many fantasy points does that impact Nikola Jokic? It's hard to know that exactly, but just from a common sense standpoint, Joel Embiid being out and it being like Paul Reed, Montrezl Harrell, Dwayne Dedmon playing centermen, that has to be massive for Nikola Jokic. So I have Jokic projected for way more fantasy points than anybody else on this slate. He's my favorite pay-up option. There's value to get to him. And with that in mind, I know that he asked who we're most underweight to, but this is a very long-winded way to say Brook Lopez because I prefer other center options.
I like that call, and I think I'm also going to be underweight to the field on Brook Lopez. So that's actually probably my answer also. So I'm trying to give, the boom bust tool answer, but I think that Brook Lopez is probably realistically the player who has the highest ownership that I'm going to be like significantly under the field to. I mean, we've got really high ownership on several players that I think are pretty good chalk in like Nasir Little. There's a good chance that I end up under the field on 68% owned Nasir Little. We have him optimal 56% of the time, but we actually have him booming 73% of the time. I'm surprised in the boom bust tool, Nasir Little actually looks like a better play than Javon Carter. So maybe I need to rethink my Javon Carter exposure a little bit. I get to 100% Nasir Little without adjusting projections at all. Maybe I will end up over the field on 68%, but both Little and Carter look like great chalk to me. Chris Middleton looks like great chalk. Bobby Portis always scares me. I feel like I think that this is just a like history with Bobby Portis thing where he lets you down so often when he is massive chalk, but he projects really well. And he's only getting 46% ownership. He's not getting like 70 like he has on some slates. So he actually looks fine. I'll probably be close to the field there. Yeah, I think Brook Lopez is just the answer for me too. Maybe James Harden also is coming in at, he's fairly chalky at 27%. I'll probably be underweight to the field there.
And the other thing I'll add too about Brook Lopez is I have Brook Lopez projected for nearly 40 fantasy points at $6,400 on DraftKings. That only gets me to 10% of them. It's just how many center options there are on the slate. It's not that I think that he should project poorly. Not the case. I think he projects extremely well. It's just there are a lot of centers to play today and can't play all of them in every lineup. The next, by the way, some of these super chats, I'm not exactly sure if they were answered on the last show or not. But let's see. Lofty sent me some pictures of Jordan sent me some pictures of the super chats. Here we go. So I'll go through these. This will be easiest. Ace of Spade, DK tiers, and thanks again. Yes, sir. I've got these queued up for you. So DK tiers, my favorite guys, tier by tier. Tier 1, Nikola Jokic. Just talked about him before. He's my favorite pay-up option on the entire slate. Your options in tier 1, it's Jokic or Doncic. Well, here's the good news. Jokic is in what should be a pretty easy matchup right now against the 76ers. Luka was expected to be suspended, but isn't now. Plus, he's playing alongside Kyrie. So I prefer Jokic for tier 1. Tier 2 for me is Sabonis. Tier 3, James Harden, now that Joel Embiid is out. Just not a tier 3 player in the absence of Joel Embiid. Tier 4, this gets a little tricky because I have his Anthony Edwards right now. But if Edwards doesn't play, De'Aaron Fox is my next favorite. Tier 5, another one, Jalen Brunson, but he's currently questionable, so I like Brunson the most. If he doesn't play, CJ McCollum is next for me. And then tier 6, you got Chris Middleton with no Jrue Holiday and with no Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Middleton, I think, is just by far the best option in tier 6. If you were to ask me in any one tier who am I most confident in my picking, it would be Chris Middleton in tier 6. So Ace of Spade, hope that helps you build out your lineups there. Next super chat, Sam Van Dam. Neil, how are you approaching Tamu/King tonight? This must be an XFL thing because I have no clue what the hell he's talking about.
It is an XFL thing. So I'm actually playing a good amount of both of them. I have Tiamo in just under 50% of my lineups. Actually, that's in the flex. So just under 70% of my lineups, most likely. And then I've got Derek King in about 30% of my lineups as well. I think he's going to go under-owned after not doing anything in the last game. So I actually really like Derek King from a showdown perspective tonight.
All right. I have no input I can give on that. I've never heard of any of those people in my entire life. I'm going to agree with Neil. My filler are Kyle Anderson and Westbrook or Conley and Levine. I don't think I have a lot of exposure to any of those guys as of now. So Anderson will look better if Ant Edwards doesn't play, then Conley will look better. Kyle Anderson would, but like as of right now, I don't like any of those combinations. Sorry to tell you, my fellow arc. Wow, Kyle Anderson, I don't really get to very much of. None of these guys are priority plays for me. Do you see it differently?
I don't believe so. Okay, so Kyle, I was thinking that Kyle Anderson's price had dropped yesterday, but he's still up at 6,900. Cat is out, so yeah. If Ant is out, then I'd have some interest in Kyle Anderson. Westbrook is, he's fine. What's Westbrook's price tag? We've got Westbrook at 8,100 versus the Bulls. Don't love it. Who are you? Who else are you talking about?
Conley was the other other piece of this.
6,300. It's a nice matchup, under 1% ownership. I think Conley's a fine GPP play, and he'll look better, obviously, if Ant is out too. It is tough. None of those players are priorities for me either here. I think I would probably go Kyle Anderson if Ant is out.
Yeah, I'll say the Anderson and Westbrook combo. Like, I still view Westbrook relative to his price as the highest upside play of that group, just because I still think there's added opportunity for him with Paul George out. But the Clippers have just been so bad with Westbrook. They get blown out a lot, and Westbrook has been so inconsistent. I'd say he's the player there with the most upside, assuming this is a tournament question. But my filler, sorry to tell you that I don't really love either side of that 2v2. Jorge Giacomi wants to know worst chalk players for today. Hope you're getting ready with low-owned stacks, Greg, for MLB. Yeah, we got baseball season not all that far away, just a few days away. Baseball is going to be starting this week. And by the way, for everybody else who are interested, Jorge crushed baseball last year, had a number of big wins. In fact, one day, Jorge and I actually split the $15. I think it was in August or something like that. Him and I with different lineups tied with the exact same amount of fantasy points. And if you guys want to check out all the tools that we're going to be having for baseball this year, well, number one, Neil's going to be doing a lot of baseball content this year. And also, if you sign up right now using the promo code MLB is back, so all one word, all capital letters, MLB is back, you will get 50% off a Stochastic Plus Platinum subscription. This is for the start of the baseball season. That's why the promo code is MLB is back. MLBISBACK. MLB is very easy to spell. Have you ever noticed that?
It is really easy to spell. Not quite as easy as NBA, but like up there.
Yeah, it's a pretty good marketing angle to make it easy to spell MLB. Like something like CNN gets a little complicated sometimes, but MLB, that's just rolls right off the tongue. And by the way, for Jorge's question, worst chalk players for today, we went over this a little bit before. I do think a lot of the chalk is pretty justified, at least relative to my ownership, though. I'm going to be underweight to the field to Brook Lopez the most. There's nothing like it's hard for me to say that Nasir Little is bad chalk. It's hard to say Javon Carter is bad chalk. It's hard to say Chris Middleton or Bobby Portis are bad chalk. These are just prime situations for these guys today, considering the Blazers have everybody out. The Bucks basically have everybody out. And then beyond these players, Matherin's popular, but also the Pacers have a lot of players. Like all these chalk plays make sense to me. The only reason I said Brook Lopez I come in underweight to is because there's a lot of other centers I like.
Yep, I'm with you there. He's a great point per dollar play. He's a center, and there's a lot. You can only play two centers.
The next super chat we have is from Jet Wayman. Jet wants to know, Neil. Oh, this is going to be a tough one for you. Would you rather have Walker Kessler or Rudy Gobert on the Wolves moving forward? And what are your thoughts on the trade?
I would rather have Walker Kessler moving forward. He's much younger, and they're basically the same player right now already. And I hate the trade, although Wolves are looking okay. They're actually, as Greg said, he bet the Wolves at 200-1 odds to win the finals, and they're looking much better. They finally have all of their stars healthy. Maybe it'll end up looking okay. If they can win a round of the playoffs, I'll feel a lot better about the trade. But yeah, I would absolutely undo the trade if I could in a heartbeat. Although I also don't know. I don't know that the Wolves would have drafted Walker Kessler. Like we talk about it under the assumption that the Wolves would have drafted Walker Kessler, and I don't think that's a foregone conclusion. So it looks a lot different. The trade doesn't look nearly as bad if Walker Kessler doesn't turn out to be so good.
There's actually that narrative, which I really don't like when people evaluate trades. Say, well, you have to see what pick the player turns into. I don't really think it's that. Like, I think it's 18th pick in the first round has X value. 20th pick in the draft has X value. Second pick in the draft has X value. you can't really grade it on what the players turn into because, I mean, you can if you want. I don't like to, though, because you don't know that those teams would have selected those same players and you don't really know if they would have developed the same way in those spots. But I mean, clearly, I think from just a total value standpoint, the Jazz got the better end of the deal. Like, that's not really debatable. But I do think this could still work out for the Timberwolves. And I do think they're a sleeper team to win the championship this year. Said it the other day on the show, and oh my, how upset were people at me in chat?
Yeah, I mean, it's people are still upset. People are lashing out in chat once again because we brought up the Timberwolves as somebody you can play.
Now,
right? It's not 1-to-1 odds.
And no, it's not. I'm not betting. It's not like I'm taking them over the field. Yeah. I took them at 200-1, and I told people 200-1. They're now 100, depending where you look, 120-1, 130-1, 100-1. The odds have come down a good amount. I feel good about my Timberwolves futures, even if people want to send me to death for it. I don't think this should be a death penalty situation. A lot of people in chat seem to think so, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that you should be put to death because you are betting on the Timberwolves. So I'm pro the pick.
Super chat from Corey Shea. Best shooting guard 4,600 and under. Let's see. If I just go to shooting guards and 4,600 or under, this is part of the season too, where I feel like a lot of the answers I'm going to give, I go look, it's like, oh, look, here's somebody who's $1,300 cheaper than the price point you gave me. Oh, not today though.
Yeah.
Keon Johnson at 4,300. That's my top option.
Yep. Same in the stochastic tools.
Yeah. Keon Johnson, I think, is a pretty good looking option today. We saw him get extended minutes yesterday for the Blazers. Actually didn't play a crazy amount, but ended up getting 21 minutes. And he's not a terrible fantasy producer, especially when you consider his rate stats should go up considering all the players out for the Blazers. So
also our best leverage play on the entire slate, by the way. 12% ownership, 25% chance of being optimal. Yeah, I think he's a really nice play here, particularly because they're really tanking. We really can't predict these minutes.
Yeah, very, very, very much tanking. Pretty hard.
Yeah, pretty hard.
Yeah. We just got some news that is going to matter for the purposes of this show. Rodney Magruder will not play today, which matters because of him and I's relationship and our long history together. And then Corey Joseph is listed as available to play. If both of them were out, that we would have really had to have looked into the Pistons depth chart and seen where some of those minutes could go. But with Corey Joseph playing and Magruder being out, I don't think it's going to really open up any kind of additional value. The next super chat we have here is from Ryan Nelson. Minnesota getting 6 seed is huge. Sacramento matchup. Now, with that said, I don't think that the Timberwolves are selling out to win this game. We saw them play together for the first time yesterday. First time the entire year the Timberwolves played what's going to be their postseason team together. They beat the Warriors in Golden State. Pretty impressive win. For today, though, no Cat. Edwards is questionable. I'm not sure we see them go all out to win this. Do you have a read on whether Edwards plays or not?
Well, first of all, I think Ryan means in the playoffs they could get Sacramento as the 6th seed. I think that's what he's talking about. I wouldn't say I have a strong read on whether Edwards plays tonight. I kind of think because Cat's sitting, maybe they just, it's going to be a really tough game with Sacramento anyway. Maybe they sit Ant and try to get them both back for the next one, but no real read here.
And then, I mean, something else too, we've got De'Aaron Fox is going to be in for Sacramento. I don't know if that really changes Minnesota's decision-making too much, but it does make the game a little bit more difficult to win. Maybe they'd say like, hey, we could really steal a win here if Fox is out. So who knows? We'll find out later. Hopefully while we're still on the air, we'll find out if Edwards is in or out, and then we can make decisions based on. Remember when you and I were doing the show on Saturday, we were pretty sure a lot of the news we were not going to get until much later. And then it was like a minute before we finished, a bunch of news dropped.
And then another minute after more news. Yeah.
So they waited right until the show ended up. And there, speak of the devil, news. Jalen Brunson, hand out today. So there's going to be no Jalen Brunson for the Knicks. Pretty big piece of news here. Jalen Brunson, who we've seen miss a handful of games as of late, but it's not just that he's going to be out. It's also how good the matchup is for the Knicks. They are at home against the Houston Rockets. Houston plays at a really fast pace. Houston plays no defense. So we've got the total in this game at 230, which is fairly high for a Knicks game. They're also 13.5-point favorites, the biggest of the night. So the team total for the Knicks is massive. What are your initial thoughts to Jalen Brunson being out? And look at some of the on-off court numbers here as well.
I mean, it's obviously a boost to everybody else on the team. Julius Randle gets a boost. RJ Barrett gets a boost. Emmanuel Quickly, of course, gets the biggest boost. He is still up at 6,500, so you're not going to get like bargain bin Emmanuel Quickly, but I think he's going to look pretty good against Houston at 6,500. Yeah, it's just a boost across the board for the Knicks. None of them, even though we're not getting that super cheap backup point guard coming in because Quickly's already priced up a bit, but he's not priced up at like 7,000 something. I think he's still going to be a good play at 6,500. And then, yeah, as we said, just Randall's going to look better. Barrett's going to look better. Josh Hart's going to look better. Everybody's going to get a little bit of a boost here.
So we have seen 16 starts out of Quickly this year. So, a handful of times that he's had to move into the starting lineup because Barrett's out, because Brunson's out, whatever it may be. In those games, he's playing 40 minutes per game and he's scoring 37.5 DraftKings points. So, like you said, the price has gone up a little bit. We're not looking at him as like a $4,200 player or anything, but still a pretty good option at his current price points. And over on FanDuel, by the way, he is 6,000 flat. Going to be really hard to get away from him there. So both DraftKings and FanDuel, I think pretty quickly becomes, no pun intended, one of the best plays that we have on the entire slate. And like you said, also with Brunson out, Randall looks better. Barrett looks better. Josh Hart could be somebody to get to as well. He's played a bigger role for the Knicks as of late. Let's look at some of Josh Hart's recent minutes. So Josh Hart played 29 minutes last game, 30 the game before, 31, 32, 38. And this is a guy who, when he first got traded to the Knicks, not going to say that he didn't have a significant role because, he did, but he was playing like 24, 25, 26 minutes. Now we're starting to see 30 plus minutes out of Josh Hart. And we know he could be a pretty good fantasy producer and certainly a very good rebounder as well. So Josh Hart is somebody else that I think should be coming into play. Is there anything else that's a takeaway from you for Brunson being out?
I see chat getting excited about Quentin Grimes. It's going to come down to ownership for me with Quentin Grimes. I still think his range of outcomes is just really large, even though he put up 49 fantasy points and played 38 minutes the last game. Like that's not usually who Quentin Grimes is. The price tag is up at 4,500. So I don't think that he's like a slam dunk play here. I would like him a lot if he's 5% owned. I'm guessing based on chat's reaction that Quentin Grimes is not going to be 5% owned, though. He's probably going to be 20+% owned. I don't know. We'll wait and see with the ownership there.
Yeah, he averages 21 fantasy points per game as a starter this year. And let's look at some of the on-off court numbers for him, though. But Taurean Prince is now questionable. So another wrinkle into the mix of the Minnesota Timberwolves. But the on-off court stats for the Knicks this year. Quentin Grimes, per 36 minutes. It's even with Brunson off the court. Grimes only scoring 28 fantasy points per 36 minutes this year. And just because Brunson is out doesn't mean Grimes has to play big minutes. There's been individual times where he shot the lights out and he's gotten that run, but there's been other games without Brunson. Here, let me look at the games Brunson was out. So Brunson was out with the hand. So Brunson was out March 5th, March 7th, and then March 11th through March 14th. All right, so I got that in the back of my head. Now let me look up Quentin Grimes' box scores. What did he do in some of those games? Because I know people are just going to think about last game where he played 38 minutes and scored 1 million fantasy points. Here's what he did in those other games. 25 minutes, 7 fantasy points. 25 minutes, 7 fantasy points. 29 minutes, 28 fantasy points. 34 minutes, 15 fantasy points. 25 minutes, 13 fantasy points. 20 minutes, 8 fantasy points. That last game was an outlier in a pretty significant way. Yeah. If you guys play Grimes a little bit, that's fine. I think going really heavy on Grimes after last game would be a little bit points chasing and a mistake to go super heavy on Quentin Grimes.
Yeah, the positive is the matchup. So like he obviously benefits from Brunson being out, and they're playing the Rockets. So again, like he is more likely to be doing well and kept in the game because he's doing well because he's playing against the Rockets. So it's a great matchup for him, but it's still wide range of outcomes. He could totally dud here.
Yeah, so we'll see what some of the ownership looks like. And when we get that update, like Neil said, it's going to be really important, the ownership on Quentin Grimes. And if he ends up being really popular, which I think is a chance, like you said, based on some people's immediate reaction to the absence of Jalen Brunson, then I'll definitely be less interested in him. But we'll see what ends up happening with that. If he ends up being a really low-owned piece, then yeah, for sure, that would be somebody who'd be of interest. Let's get back to these super chats. The next one is from, or were there no more? Let me go through the YouTube chat and make sure we got to all of them. Nope, the last one was from Ryan Nelson. So let me go into Discord and see what questions we have there. If you guys have questions for me, at me. But in the meantime, Here is the easiest way for anybody to make money today. Easiest, even easier than XFL DFS, Neil. Even easier. We are sponsored today by Bet365. If you guys live in any of these states, because they're only in a few states right now, but we've decided to do this read on the shows anyway, just because the value is so good on this. If you're in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, or Virginia, you sign up at Bet365 using the link we have below, and you place a $1 bet, $1, and you get $365 in bonus bets at 365. Name of the site, 365, $365. This is the easiest money you guys can make. I don't know how long the offer is going to be around, but we're going to keep bringing it to you as long as it sticks, because $1 into $365, and all you have to do is sign up at our link, and you have to be located in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, or Virginia. Take advantage of this offer while it's around. You're not going to find an easier way to help build your bankroll. Now, in the meantime, we're gonna also help people build their bankrolls in the harder way, which is playing the DFS out here and grinding it. Not necessarily free money, but still, there's money to be made. First question is from our guy Lippy, Eric Johnson. I'm getting 70% Harden. Feels like a lot on DK. No? Let's see. What do I have for Harden? I don't have 70% of Harden, so I would say that's a little much. I will say I currently have 45% of Harden. If you want to take a stand on it, like, this is not a terrible player to take a stand on. I do like having Harden and Jokic in the same lineups for a little bit of correlation there. But no, Harden's one of the better pay up options on the slate, and he is my second most rostered pay up option behind Nikola Jokic, but 70% is more than what I have. Where do you think you're going to end up landing on Harden? I assume less than 70.
Yeah, my guess is I'm actually going to be underweight to the field on Harden, just because he doesn't project as well as, Luka and Jokic, and it's just so easy to pay up for those guys because we have so many value options. So I think I'll be a little bit underweight to I do think that he's a fine play. He's 26% owned. That feels about right for Harden. So not trying to take a huge stand here. Also, with Julius Randle now becoming a better play, there's just a lot of plays that I like a little bit better.
And Eric Johnson also says that he is only playing 5% of Jokic, so he thinks that his projections are broken. There's a lot of good center options. I like Jokic a lot. And I think the other thing too is, like I said, it's really hard to project players when somebody from the opposing team is out, but it's hard for me to think the absence of Embiid is not going to have a significant impact on what we should expect out of Nikola Jokic.
Huge impact.
I think you should be playing more than 5% of him, Eric. I think you should. But if you're playing other centers you like, I mean, it also depends, Lippy, who you're playing at center. So, like I said, I've got Jokic in here. I've got exposure to Eubanks, Jackson, and then Lopez of the chalky centers is further behind for me. But if you told me that you're just playing a lot of Brook Lopez, playing a lot of Isaiah Jackson, Bobby Portis, I'm not going to say that's wrong either. It depends who else you're playing. If you're playing like some random center that just projects okay, like if you're like really heavy on, I'm trying to think who would be, like if you're really heavy on Şengün today, as opposed to playing Jokic, I would say that is something I wouldn't recommend. But if you're just playing some of the other chalk centers that look pretty good, I don't think that's unreasonable. I'm playing a lot of Jokic, though. T. Lee, any Indiana Pacers for cash outside of Isaiah Jackson? Benedict Mathurin. Mathurin, for cash purposes, I would say Isaiah Jackson and Benedict Mathurin. For tournaments, I like Jalen Smith as a pivot. Well, I guess we can't even say necessarily as a pivot off of Isaiah Jackson, because Jalen Smith himself is projected for ownership in the teens, but I do think that he's a decent lower owned alternative to Isaiah Jackson. And the Pacers rotations have always been difficult to predict this year. It's not crazy to think that Jalen Smith ends up playing a lot of the minutes in the front court. So I do like Jalen Smith. For cash games, though, Isaiah Jackson and Benedict Mathurin.
Do you think TJ McConnell is a cash play at 5,100? He's probably not starting, right? The lineup came out, so still some risk there. But he projects well for 5,100 is the only reason I ask.
On a lot of slates, the answer would be yes. For today, I would say no, just because there's so many other players to get to.
Yep.
Let me refresh our ownership. Let's see. Do we have it updated for Brunson being out yet? See if we got Quickly and some of the other Knicks guys. Not quite yet. Not quite. But I feel pretty good about saying Mathurin in addition to Isaiah Jackson, T-Lay. And then Lippy, our guy Eric here, followed up and said 75% of Luka at 15% owned. Kyrie, I have none. Let me see. Am I playing much of Luka today? I'm right in line with the field on Luka. How do you feel about Luka in large field tournaments? Eric's playing 75% of them.
That's a lot of Luka. I'm hoping that the ball don't lie and Luka's just going to be shit today because he should be suspended for this game. But no, I think I'm going to be overweight to the field on Luka. He's expensive, but it's a great matchup with the Pacers. They're a pace-up team. No pun intended. They're also not a great defensive team. So a lot of reason to like Luka. Obviously, Kyrie's in, so like you never know. Kyrie could be pick up some usage. Luka could lose some, but I think Luka just projects too well for a guy who's going to be under 13% owned.
Yeah, like I'm about even with the field. I don't have like a super strong take on Luka. He's a guy on the slate. There's value to get to him, but my favorite pay up options for today are Jokic and James Harden. We've got Gangrene saying Nembhard or McConnell. I have more exposure to McConnell. How does Nembhard look to you? If you're looking at the boom bust tool, is he somebody you would consider to be a leverage play off of any of the Pacers chalk?
Yeah, let me look.
I find Nembhard personally to be unnecessary today. I mean, McConnell to me is also a little bit overowned in my player pool, but I'm not getting a crazy amount of him. But if it's one or the other, it is McConnell over Nembhard.
Yeah, so we have, I mean, Nembhard is at least shooting guard eligible, but 10% projected ownership, 12% chance of booming, 8% chance of being optimal. So he looks like just a mediocre play in the boom bust tool. TJ McConnell coming in at 19% ownership, 28% chance. He actually looks like a very positively leveraged play. I probably need to refresh. Maybe the ownership has come up on TJ McConnell, but last we had, he actually had some nice positive leverage with 19% ownership, 28% chance of being optimal. I'm going to see this is obviously the Jalen Brunson news is going to affect things in terms of ownership here and optimal odds. So let me see.
I mean, the other thing too is because I'm updating my lineups for the Knicks news right now. Is I had a decent amount of exposure to Jalen Brunson before this.
Yeah, me too.
It's that's going to open up some spots in my lineups, and then also I didn't have Quickly before. I'm going to have Quickly now. Starting lineup for the Bucks, by the way: Carter, Allen, Middleton, Portis, and Lopez. So nothing really unexpected there. Javon Carter, massive chalk play today. Chris Middleton, massive chalk play today. Bobby Portis, chalk play today. Brooke Lopez, also chalk. For today, what are the rules you're setting, Neil, for the most amount of players you are willing to roster on any one team?
3-player cap. That's all I'm doing. I didn't set any groups or anything like that. I just set a 3-player cap per team.
I do have 4 for today, but with that said, I only have one lineup that got to 4 players and ended up being a lineup with $4. So for the most part, it's 3 for me, but I allowed up to 4. And Let's see, what are the one lineup I have $4 in? It is Carter, Middleton, Portis, Lopez for that one. Yeah.
I just think there's so much value on the slate that I'm like, I don't want to go to 4, but I think it's between 3 or 4 is the right answer. One of those two.
Yeah. And I'm primarily, not just because of the way things worked out, I'm primarily at, by the way, also, as I'm ruining my lines, I did get to more TJ McConnell now, actually, with Jalen Brunson out of my player pool. Got to a few more lineups with him.
I actually got to a lot of McConnell in my latest run, which I'm okay with that. I think that he's coming in a little bit under-owned. Currently in the boom bust right now, he's coming in at 18% projected ownership, 26% chance of being optimal, and 40% chance of booming. His price has come down to 5,100. He was, hovering around 6,000. I always thought he was a fine play around 6,000. At 5,100, he does look like a pretty nice value.
Yeah, a lot of guys out for the Pacers. So, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so the Pacers starting lineup, by the way, we'll read off the starters here. So the Pacers starters are Nembhard, Mathurin, Nwora, Nesmith, Jalen Smith. Isaiah Jackson is not starting. So yeah, we could talk about this right here. Considering this is the starting lineup for the Pacers, Neil, what do our priorities change? Whether Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, because to me, this doesn't really change that much because Isaiah Jackson's not somebody I ever project to go play 35 minutes anyway. He's a guy who, even in a lot of his starts, plays somewhat, I'm not going to say limited minutes, but overall for the year, he's only playing 25 minutes per game as a starter. So I don't really think whether he starts or comes off the bench is a massive difference in terms of what I expect from him. He started last game and played 23 minutes. I'm kind of expecting more of the same, right? I think he's a good play in the mid-range, but this, whether he starts, comes off the bench, doesn't really materially impact how much I'm going to get to him.
You're talking about Jalen Smith or Isaiah Jackson?
Oh, so Isaiah Jackson.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about. So we have Jalen Smith starting now, and I'm just. Does it affect what you're doing with Jalen Smith at all?
No, because I think the minutes are so variable here. Like I already liked him and Isaiah Jackson and have about equal exposure to both of them.
Yeah, I'm going through just Jalen Smith's game logs as a starter, and he started in January was the last start. He played 25 minutes in that start. Start prior to that, he played 14 minutes. The start prior to that, 13, then 12. Finally, one with 28 minutes. So Jalen Smith is, yeah, it's definitely volatile between these guys, regardless of who is starting. So I got to a ton of Jalen Smith in my latest crunch, and I think I'm going to cut back a bit because those minutes are volatile there.
Yeah, he's in about 30% of my lineups, which that's what, like him and Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith are each in about 30% of my lineups. And that was going to be the case regardless of who is starting there. Because I still view them as guys who are going to about split the center minutes.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And that's what we have. We have Jalen Smith in for 26 minutes. Actually, we have them both in for 26 minutes, give or take like 10 seconds. So we're about having them split the minutes, giving them both just a tiny bit extra. I think maybe I'll just cut them back. Let me see if I can just cut them back to 24 apiece, see what happens then.
Yeah, and either way, so Isaiah Jackson is the better points per minute fantasy producer. There's still two players that are both definitely worth getting to in large field tournaments. But once again, I think these are guys that have a fairly similar outlook.
Yeah, both solid plays. I think that we were giving Jalen Smith 26 minutes, at which point that it gets him to over 30 fantasy point projection, nearly a 31 fantasy point projection at 4,100. I think I'm going to just split their minutes 24, and that actually brings down his projection quite a bit, enough that I'm not going to get him in 90% of my lineups.
And now
I think they're both good plays.
Yeah, like I said, to me, I don't need to keep repeating myself on this. I don't think who starts at center for the Pacers is massively telling of where the minutes are going to go for this team. They're both good tournament plays for cash games. Here's the one thing that changes for cash games, because we got asked about it before. I'd be more apt to play Jalen Smith in cash and Isaiah Jackson in a GPP type setting.
Yep.
All right, uploading my lineups here. Got everything set, updated for the Knicks. And then let's look at the ownership, because I believe we just got an ownership update, although I'm not sure if that'll be including the Pacers news as of yet. But all right, my CSV is uploaded. Let's refresh the ownership page and see what looks good here. Ownership update as of 2 minutes ago. If you guys are following along and looking at our ownership, give that a refresh. You can see what the most recent ownership looks like. And here's where we are at on everybody now. Quickly is now 44% owned. So for anybody wondering where Quickly would wind up, 44%, the most popular players on the slate, starting with DraftKings. Javon Carter, 67% owned. Nasir Little, 66. Chris Middleton, 46. We got Quickly at 44% ownership. Bobby Portis at 44 as well. Those are all the players who are north of 40. And then over on FanDuel, Quickly is now 66% owned. Nasir Little, 63%. Chris Middleton, 59%. Drew Eubanks, 44%. Benedict Mathurin, 41%. And Javon Carter, 38%. Does anything stand out to you about the latest ownership run?
I was not listening closely because I was doing my lineups.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So I will also update you guys on what ended up happening with the Pacers guys. So Jalen Smith is now at 33% ownership. Isaiah Jackson at 18%. They kind of flip-flopped, right? This is where they were before, if I remember correctly. We had Isaiah Jackson at like 33%, Jalen Smith, I think, at 17% on DraftKings. So those guys have flip-flopped. And then over on FanDuel, Isaiah Jackson is currently at 14% ownership, and Jalen Smith is at 29%. So we've seen these guys inverse a little bit in terms of their ownership. So it's funny. Here's where I am going to end up now. I'm going to be a little bit underweight to the field on Jalen Smith, a little bit overweight to the field on Isaiah Jackson.
Yep, I think that's probably where I'm going to end up as well. What do we have Isaiah Jackson at?
Isaiah Jackson was 18%.
Yeah, so that I am the same boat. A little bit under the field Smith, a little over the field Jackson. Feels about right.
There we go. Let's see what we've got for some more of the super chats that came in, and we've got a handful of them here. Riley Cooper, 14. Ingles or Pat Connaughton for last man in. Let's see, Ingles or Pat Connaughton. That for me is Ingles or Connaughton. They are so close. I'm going to say Connaughton just because he's lower owned. The projections are almost identical.
Yeah, I think I'm same boat.
Cheers Brew. DK FanDuel cash locks, also CP3 plus Jokic or Harden Randall. So answering the first part of your question, now that we have Brunson out for the Knicks, I'm going to go with the Harden Randall spot. I love Nikola Jokic tonight, but I think that the Harden Randall individually better combination because I like Harden Randall a lot more than I like Chris Paul. And then for cash game locks today, just some of those most popular. There are so many good points per dollar plays. The ones on DraftKings, I think you should absolutely, without a doubt, have in your cash game lineup. Carter, Nasir Little, Chris Middleton, Emmanuel Quickly, Bobby Portis. I think those 5 must play for DraftKings cash games. For FanDuel purposes, Quickly, Little, Middleton, Eubanks, Mathurin. Eubanks is a really strong play on DraftKings in addition to FanDuel, but FanDuel, I consider him a must play in cash because he also has power forward eligibility, whereas DraftKings only center. So I hope that helps you build out your cash game lineup there. Cheers. Cheers Brew to you as well. Jorge, Jokic or Luka today? I have more exposure to Jokic.
I do also. Luka's a more contrarian option. Comes in a little bit lower owned, so there's benefits there. But yeah, I have more Jokic.
Well, we're at 14. How close should I be to lock quickly in 20 max on DK? Well, I could tell you I have for the $4 20 lineup, I played quickly in 9 out of 20 lineups, so 45%.
My latest run, I have 23% quickly.
There you go. Ooh, so you're pretty aggressively underweight to him then.
Didn't do anything to his projection to get there. That's just what it's given me, and
just the way it
I'll
went.
Probably just go with it. Yeah, now I'm up to 30 my latest crunch. I like that a little bit better. I don't want to be massively underweight there because it's a great matchup.
Next super chat we have here is from Rodovich7778. Paul Reed and Bob Covington pick for a single entry tournament on DK. I think there's more opportunity for Paul Reed. I don't know what the Sixers are going to do with their center minutes, but if I had to choose, and I don't really like Paul Reed or Robert Covington, but if I had to choose one of them, unless Paul Reed starts, and I'd feel better about him. But as of right now, Paul Reed.
Yeah, I'm playing some Paul Reed. I don't think I'm playing any Rocco.
Yeah, I'm not playing any of Covington.
Yeah, we only got him in for under 14 minutes. On this slate, you don't want Covington.
All right, got to rerun my lineups one more time with some recent ownership. We've got my fill art. Greg, look at the Pacers starters. Jackson a fade. No, because I don't think this impacts him all that much. Like I think the minutes are still just as variable. Just there's a little bit less ownership to Jackson. I don't think this makes him a fade at all. James Magruder, 7,300 or under on DK for a guard not named quickly. 7,300 or under. Can't be quickly. That is Jalen Green for myself next. How about for you, Neil?
Yeah, 7,300 or under. It would be Jalen Green. We actually have Shaedon Sharpe projected better than Jalen Green, but just very barely, and I wouldn't leave that much salary on the table. So it'd be Jalen Green for me too.
All right, so Jalen Green is our answer. And the next question from Douglas Bowman. Any Wiseman interest for a tourney to offset Brook Lopez or Bobby Portis? No. You don't have to do that today. I didn't play Wiseman at all, did you?
I didn't. I played him on Prize Picks today. I don't think that I'm playing him at all in DFS.
It's unnecessary. I understand where your head's at. Like, oh, maybe he goes well and just totally shuts down those guys, but I wouldn't really look at that slate this way. If you're going to get away from Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, I would go with Jokic, or I would go with, Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith. To me, like Wiseman is just about fairly priced.
Yeah.
All right. Final upload, CSV. And
somebody was just asking for our top plays to each. I think that was a super chat. Top plays to each position.
Yeah, we could
highest exposure. Yeah. Let me. What's funny is I'm actually I'm trying to get to just a little bit of Alperen Şengün. You gave him as an example of somebody you don't want to jam into your lineups. I do want to have some Şengün. I do like these Houston guys at these around 7,000 price tags are about right. So I don't want to completely miss him either.
let's see. Did I end up getting to him? Yeah, I still don't have any Şengün.
I think that's totally fine.
All right. So my most rostered players, position by position. Neil, at point guard, who do you have the most exposure to as of right now?
Point guard, I have Javon Carter, Emmanuel Quickly, TJ McConnell.
So for me at point guard, Javon Carter and James Harden, and then Emmanuel Quickly coming in third. Shooting guard, I have Quickly the most, followed by Benedict Mathurin, and then Shaedon Sharpe. I'm underweight too Sharpe, though. How about yourself at shooting guard?
Well, this might not actually be correct because I am having trouble with uploads, but right, I've got Mathurin, Emmanuel Quickly, and Shaedon Sharpe as my top 3 shooting guards.
So here's what you have to do. There's something wrong, I think, with the DraftKings upload right now.
Okay.
Download it and then late swaptimize, and it'll let you upload.
That's what I always do, though.
That's really?
Yeah.
It wasn't working for me normally updating, trying to update my lineups, and then once it did as a late swaptimize, it took my lineups. It wouldn't at first though. So I'll just do while you figure that out, because we only got a minute left here. I'll answer some of these questions.
I got it in.
Okay. Small forward for me, Chris Middleton and Nasir Little. Power forward, Nasir Little, Bobby Portis, and Julius Randle. And then at center, Bobby Portis, Nikola Jokic as the players at center that I have the most exposure to. So hopefully that helps you, Jonathan Bennett, to build out your lineups. That's who I got the most exposure to at each spot. And let's go into Discord and see what we have in here. So in Discord, some questions we have. How much Sharpe are you guys playing? Decent GPP play. So Shaedon Sharpe, I have 25% of.
I have 20%.
Which is, if I'm not mistaken, underweight to the field.
Yeah, I think that's right.
About even, because he did come down after the Quickly news.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm about even with the field on him. Sam Cassell Dance, do we prefer McConnell, Kawhi, or Mathurin Sabonis on DK? I didn't really play Sabonis or Kawhi.
I think Sabonis is interesting against the Wolves, but we do have De'Aaron Fox in, so he doesn't get any kind of bump there. Who are the pairings again?
Oh, well, that game just locked, so This is very unhelpful. Sorry, Sam. I could tell you what I would have answered, which is, let me look at my exposures. It would have been tough. I don't like either of those combinations.
I don't hate Sabonis. I'm going to have some Sabonis tonight.
There's too much opportunity cost for me because of the position.
Yeah, that's true. It is tough because of the position, but still don't mind it.
I would say McConnell and Kawhi just because Sabonis being center eligible. There's other centers I like more. I wonder what some of the ownership actually ended up coming in on for these first couple of games. So the games that just locked are Bucks, Pistons, and then Mavericks, Pacers. So I'm going to download the CSV because I'm really interested to see where the ownership actually ended up coming in. And in the meantime, get ready, guys. Neil and I are about to look at some of our favorite bets of the day. So Neil, while I'm pulling up some of the ownership, why don't you pull up Bet Pro and see what some of our best bets of the day are? And if you guys want access to NBA Bet Pro, 7 days totally for free. We've got a link for it below. That is going to get access 7 days totally for free. And MLB starts very soon. So BetPro is not only going to be including NBA, it's also going to including our baseball projections when baseball starts a few days from now. So BetPro, you're going to get NBA, you're going to get MLB as well. They're not separate products. They are grouped together. And then any other sports we end up adding to BetPro, at least as of now, the plan is for them always to be together there. So BetPro also, and what's a better price than free?
I didn't even know that we were adding MLB. That's fun.
The Bet365 deal is probably a little bit better because it's like $1 to 365, but this isn't bad either. All right, let's see what's looking good here. Ownership, loading. Who are you going to guess is the most popular player from the first couple of games, Neil?
From the first couple of games. So again, it is probably Javon Carter.
It would seem that way. I have so many tabs open on my computer. It is not cooperating with me. It is going very slow unzipping this file. I just have to close it out and try it again. So I'm checking well, normally $15. Today is the $18 over on DraftKings. Buddy Hield his ownership. That's interesting. Not a lot of it. But he does have, some people decided that this was a Buddy Hield slate.
I'm happy that they did.
All right. Unload faster. While this is opening up, Einsteinium wants to know, is it okay to play Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith in a DK lineup? I would not play them together.
And I did not set that rule. So I agree with you that you probably, I think they're okay because of the price tags. Like if they do split the minutes, they could definitely both get there. But on a slate this large, I probably should have set a rule. I think I'm with you there.
Here's where the ownership ended up coming in. These are the most popular players from the first couple games. A lot of chalk here because these were two of the better value spots. Javon Carter, as Neil had said, most popular, 56% ownership on Javon Carter. Bobby Portis is 43% owned. Jalen Smith ended at 37% ownership. So Jalen Smith came in very, very popular there. Chris Middleton, 36%. Jordan Nwora, 30%. Luka came in at 28%. Interesting. People played a ton of Luka.
How much?
28% Luka.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 48% for a second.
No,
28% still, I was hoping that it was going to be lower and I was going to be above the field. Now I have to look at where I am relative to the field.
But by the way, looking at these ownerships, I wish now in hindsight I didn't play Jalen Smith at all and would have just played a bunch of Isaiah Jackson. Jackson 15%, Jalen Smith 37%. We've seen games where Jalen Smith has started this year and played like 8 minutes. We've seen games where Isaiah Jackson's come off the bench and has played more minutes than Jalen Smith. If I would have known the ownership would have been that much different between the two of them, I would have been way higher on Isaiah Jackson than what I am, but still a little bit overweight. We've got Brooke Lopez came in at 23%, Mathurin 20%, TJ McConnell 20%, Isaiah Jackson 15%. Nobody else is over 10% owned from the early games. Considering that information, Neil, what are your biggest rooting interests from the first couple games of the night?
All right, let's see. Would you say Middleton came in at?
Middleton came in at 36% ownership.
Yeah, I have 60% Chris Middleton. So I'd say that's one of my bigger ones. I mean, I'm actually above the field on several players in the first game. And then I didn't do anything to like avoid the first game. That got 73% Javon Carter, 60% Middleton, 60% Mathurin, 47% Bobby Portis. I actually cut back his projections, still got to 47% Bobby Portis, 40% McConnell, 33% Jalen Smith, 30% Isaiah Jackson, 20% Brooke Lopez. It's hard to, I'm overweight to so many. I only got to one lineup of Jordan Nwora. Where did he end up?
Jordan Nwora was about 30% owned.
So my biggest rooting interest is against Jordan Nwora, apparently. I didn't mean to go well underweight to Jordan Nwora. I think he's a totally fine play, but if he's 30% owned, I'm happy to not have a ton at 30%.
Yeah, what do I have of Nwora? I have him in 10% of lineups. So I'll be rooting against him. Brooke Lopez brought up before, although Lopez did end up, so I have 15% Lopez. I am going to be a little bit underweight to the field, not as much as I thought I was going to be. I guess people just really, really loaded up on Jalen Smith as we got close to lock there. Bobby Portis is in a ton of my lineups. I'll be rooting for him. I'm overweight to the field on Chris Middleton, like yourself.
Malakar has a lot of Jordan Nwora. I am cheering against you today, Malakar.
Yeah, I hope you lose all of your money. All of it. Yeah, we do have some different rooting interests. By the way, the Knicks starting lineup, nothing unexpected here. We've seen this situation a few times this year with Jalen Brunson out. Just quickly, Grimes, Barrett, Randall, Robinson. That is the Knicks starting lineup for tonight. Ready to talk about some bets now, Neil?
Yeah, let's talk some bets. First, I got to say, Two Nice says, Neil going to change his mind in 10 minutes when Nwora has 20 in the first. No, I'm going to be rooting even harder against Nwora.
Yeah, why would, if you don't have exposure to somebody, he starts doing
I can't change it now.
Yeah, you get halfway through. Well, it depends, right? Because if you text your rep and you ask him to do the super secret swap.
Good point. If I do the Onyx thing.
Yeah, it depends. But do you want to, here's a question. How many points would Jordan Nwora fantasy points need in the first quarter for you to use your once a month swap after the game already starts to get exposure to more of Jordan Nwora? How many fantasy points do you need from him in the first quarter?
Probably 15.
15?
If he gets to 15, I'm going to use my once a month swap.
Yeah, it would have to be over 20 for me.
Okay. Yeah, you only get one per month, especially this time of year. You're probably right. It's probably you got to up it a little bit.
Yeah, and then also think baseball's about to start. You don't know what sport you want to use it on. There's bigger contests for baseball than there normally would be. You might want to save it for that. We got some super chats, by the way, and then we'll get into some of the bets. Chris Williams, our guy Chris, wants to know, great show as usual. playing the Bulls Clippers showdown. Couple things, favorite 2-3 captains. And then he also says, I rank LaVine, Vooch, DeRozan with Morris out. Do you guys like Batum or Covington? And then he also adds, hit the like button. So yes, thank you very much, Chris, for telling people to hit the like button there. I have to build out showdown lineups for that game, and then I will answer your question. I don't have those preset, but it won't take me very long to crunch out those lineups and tell you what I got to.
I can tell you that I got to 0 players from that game in my regular build.
Let me see if that's the case for me.
0 exposure at all to either of them. Interesting. It's going to be a triple overtime game.
Same. Oh, actually, you know who I'm rooting against the most? With Luka being nearly 30% owned, I only have him in 5% of lineups. I'm rooting against Luka today.
See, I jazzed up my Luka ownership because he was coming in at 12% ownership. I was like, give me triple that. I ended up with 37% Luka, and now I'm like just over the field.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, people know this by now. The guys that I ended up paying up for today, it is James Harden and it is Luka Doncic. So that is who it is that I'm rooting for on my end. And it was Nikola Jokic and James Harden. So I just want Harden, Jokic, one of those guys to outscore Luka today, and then I'll be feeling pretty good.
Okay, Tune says, I was talking about the being glad you were underweight to the field. I did say that too, and that's yeah, you are correct. I will be regretting that in the first quarter if he goes off.
The Noora thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, it depends on the scenario also. If I don't play somebody and they have a massive game, it doesn't necessarily mean I regret it. It depends why am I off? Did I project somebody's minutes wrong? Is it just a thing? If I don't play somebody and then they shoot 100% from the field, which does happen from time to time, right. You get the chalk guy who goes out. It's like, oh, look, it's halftime. He's 7 of 7 from the field with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Like, all right, I was never going to project for that kind of thing to happen. So it depends what it is. If I project somebody to be really chalky, or if somebody's really chalky and I'm projecting them to play, 22 minutes and they go out and play like 34 or something like that, then yeah, I probably just had a shitty projection. And then it's like, oh, I screwed up. But if it's just, weird, he shoots 70% from the field, I never feel too bad about that.
Yeah. Slayer OKs asked, what is the secret swap they mentioned?
Yeah. So the secret, here's the secret swap thing. If you play enough volume on DraftKings and you text your rep, you can't email them. You have to text them. They'll change your lineups for you after the slate ends. So here I have the lineups built out for Chris Williams. Chris, here is what I got. By the way, 2 captains that ended up popping up much more meaningfully for me than the other captains. It is Kawhi Leonard and then Vooch. Those are the only 2 I got to over 20%. Nobody else was really remotely close. So to me, by far the 2 best captains, Kawhi Leonard and Nikola Vucevic. And then he wanted to know some of my favorite utility guys here. Also, Kawhi. We were talking about Westbrook before when somebody asked us a 2v2. It's so hard to nail down what his minutes are going to be. Yeah. But for a 1-game setting where we know he has upside, I actually got him to Westbrook in utility spot more than any other player. So Westbrook, DeRozan, Vooch, LaVine, all guys I got in utility. As for cheap guys, here's one thing that's a little hard. Caruso is currently questionable. If he plays, I think he looks great. If he is out, then I think that Patrick Beverley looks better. But as of right now, Caruso is my most rostered cheap guy. Let's see, what was the other part of Chris's question? He said, rank LaVine, Vooch, and DeRozan. Okay. So between LaVine, Vooch, and DeRozan, I got to Vooch the most, LaVine the second most, DeRozan the third most. And then with Morris out, do I like Batum or Covington? I don't like Batum or Covington for the main slate. For the purpose of a 1-game showdown slate, though, I think Covington's a pretty good cost-saving option at 2,200, especially because there are a pretty good amount of expensive players in this Clippers-Bulls game. So I do like Covington for this particular format. Hope that helps you with your lineups, Chris. And we do appreciate all the support you give us, the super chat. And also, he always says at the end that he likes our content. He tells people to like and subscribe and all that. So love to see it. Thank you.
Chris, he's the one who works at Apple, right? He tells all his Apple coworkers, or am I mixing him up with somebody else?
No, that's him. He works at Apple. He is, if I'm not mistaken, the CEO, something like that.
CEO of Apple.
Yeah, I believe that's his job title. He's CEO of Apple. And that's what he does in his free time. He watches LBL and plays NBA DFS. One more super chat from James Magruder. best 5,400 or under utility player, or keep Drew Eubanks. So we've got a couple options here. He's got Drew Eubanks in right now, but he wants to know what to do with the 5,400 spot. All right, 5,400.
So it's a util?
5,400 utility. He currently has Drew Eubanks and wants to know if he should swap to somebody else. So here's well, you should upgrade somebody else. But the player I have that projects the best of the remaining players is Drew Eubanks. But you don't just want to leave $1,100 in salary on the table.
What about Nasir Little? We actually have Nasir Little projected higher than Drew Eubanks.
Well, I mean, that's even more salary, though.
I'm with you. Yeah, I would not just swap down to Nasir Little. I also wouldn't keep. I would try to use, like, NBA is the one sport where I'm trying to typically use close to full salary cap. Maybe later in the year it's not as important now that we do have so much value. Like, you don't need to be using your full salary, but it's typically the one sport where, like, I'm not trying to leave much salary on the table. If I have 1,000 left over, I'm generally trying to upgrade somewhere.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, once again, Drew Eubanks, just make sure you upgrade somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through this to see anything else. No, I mean, I would have said TJ McConnell, but that game is already locked at this point. See, I would say Eubanks and upgrade another spot. Eubanks is a really strong center play. He's somebody I get. So before, when I said I had the most exposure to Bobby Portis and Nikola Jokic of all the centers, the one that I get the most exposure to outside of those guys is Eubanks. All right, that wraps up all of the super chats. Let me just go back into Discord to see if there was any other questions in here. If not, then we could look at some of our favorite bets for the day. But it looks like we got some questions in Discord to help these guys out as well. Einsteinium, how much Gobert exposure did you get to, if any? None for me today.
I believe I had just a tiny bit of Gobert. And I didn't do anything to his projection to get more or anything. I just think he projected well enough that I got 3% Gobert.
The next question is from Iron Maiden 2. I have a chalky lineup in DK single entry. Is it better to play Harden and Eubanks or Gobert and Sharp? Harden and Eubanks.
Even if it's chalky, Gobert and Sharp. I might swap to the second one. That's going to be a lot less chalky. Like, if the rest of the lineup is chalky, I probably wouldn't want to play what's Harden coming in at ownership wise. He's at that's all right.
He was popular, but it's not like he was insanely popular, if I remember correct.
We got him at 25%. We've got Eubanks fairly highly owned too.
Sharp is also popular, though.
Sharp, yeah, but I mean, Gobert being the one player, so I think three of them are going to be fairly chalky. Gobert is at least a little bit. He's not chalky. Gets a nice matchup with Sacramento. I think I might go with that one. It's not going to project as well.
Yeah, it depends how chalky. Like, if you're playing all of the most chalky players at every position, then I'd say, like, okay, make a case for Gobert and Sharp. But I have so much more exposure to Harden and the Eubanks side that I have to say that is what my answer is.
Yeah,
but a little hard to know without.
I mean, I do too. I do too, to be clear. So it's just if you're playing, like, because we have so, like, the chalk is so chalky on this slate, like 70% type players, that if they're all the 50% plus, then I would probably go to the Gobert one. But yeah, there is a range there in terms of chalkiness.
And then Swaz wants to know thoughts on Fox. I think he's going to be under-owned in a perfect matchup. I didn't end up getting to Fox. He's a type of player on this slate that'd be like, boy, I would have liked to have played him. I would have liked to have more. Well, I don't have any. I would have liked to. It's just an issue of there are so many good options on the slate, and I think that he's a decent one. There's just better plays. Did you get to Fox at all?
I didn't actually look. So it wasn't a huge priority for me. I got to 7% Fox. He's 8,400. The price is right. The matchup is nice. No more D'Lo. So, like, that's the defense got a little bit better, I think, with Conley, but yeah, I think it is still a nice matchup. I think the field's at 8%. That feels about right.
All right. There we go. So let's now get to some of your guys. We'll give you some of our favorite bets for the day. And also, see, we got the games have tipped off. So we could look at some of the stats from the first quarter after we have some bets we give out for you guys. So looking at NBA Bet Pro right now, and Like I said before, we're going to have MLB added to this in the not very distant future because baseball season starts in a few days, and we are going to have some props for baseball season as well. But what's currently looking good in NBA Bet Pro? I wanted to refresh it just to make sure I'm looking at the most recent data and have some of the players that have already started filtered out of this. So one thing that I bet earlier today that does come with a little bit of a caveat because I still do like it, but Patrick Beverley is plus money for under 4.5 rebounds. We've got him projected for 4. If Alex Caruso does not play, I love that bet. I think that that's a really strong look. The problem, though, is that Caruso is questionable. So if Caruso sits, I would avoid Patrick Beverley, and I would regret the bet that I placed earlier. Because here's the timing of me placing that bet, Neil. I bet Beverley under rebounds, and then I think maybe 30 seconds after I placed the bet, I get the notification that Alex Caruso is questionable. So I wouldn't have bet that had I not known that information, but I do love it if Caruso ends up playing. So something to keep in mind. Also, if you guys are looking at Bet Pro, we do have different players color-coded and highlighted if they have different players that are questionable that could potentially impact some of their projections. But what's standing out to you about our projections in Bet Pro, Neil? What looks like a good bet?
I mean, I like this Mitchell Robinson under on 9.5 rebounds. That's just on Prize Picks. I actually did a video on Prize Picks earlier today with that number. It's been up all day. I think that the 9.5 rebounds is just too high for Mitchell Robinson. Volatile minutes. Houston, very strong rebounding team. So I do like that under on Mitchell Robinson. I like this over on Jaden McDaniels, 3.5 rebounds. Last game he didn't play much. That was just completely foul trouble. Now we have Cat out. Jaden should have more rebounding opportunities, should be on the floor plenty. So 3.5 rebounds. I'll take the over on that all day for Jaden McDaniels. Those are a couple that I'm noticing right away. I'll see if I can find any others that stand out to me.
By the way, I have very exciting news for myself anyway. Remember I said my biggest rooting interest against for the slate was Luka Doncic. Guess how many fantasy points he has?
I'm not going to guess. I'm just scrolling. What is going on, Luka?
0.25. Luka is busting hard, and as you guys know, the first 4 minutes of the game, there's no coming back from that.
There's no coming back from that.
Yeah, you have a weak first 4 minutes of the game, and there's no way to bounce back. He's 0 for 2 from the field. He's going to shoot 0% today. So, yeah, slow start for Luka. Also, people pointing out Javon Carter went to the bench early, and yeah, not exactly sure. I'm not watching the game, so not sure why, but yeah, Javon Carter played 4 minutes, hit a 3, and then checked out for Joe Ingles. So it could have just been the rotation. For what it's worth, they do that with Giannis a lot too. He only plays like 3, 4, 5 minutes and then ends up checking out and then comes back in for the later stages of the quarter and plays a lot of the second quarter. So I wouldn't panic about it. Wouldn't panic about it. Also, I wouldn't panic too much about Luka as much as I am about 5 minutes, maybe now 5 minutes. 5 minutes for Luka, and he's still only at 1.25 fantasy points. Yeah, he's done. No chance of a good game for Luka now.
No chance. I'm sad about it.
Yeah, no chance.
Somebody just said that the Mitchell Robinson line is actually down at 8.5 now, which I don't like that nearly as much. 9.5, I love 8.5 is tough.
It depends what book you're looking at as well. It's going to be different at different books.
Right. But I just refreshed, and yeah, I don't see it at the top of our board anymore for Prize Picks. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'll refresh and see what's available now. And the lines do move. You know what might have happened, Neil? You might have given it out. Somebody went in bed and moved the line right away.
Oh, maybe.
Could be.
I did my video earlier, though, too, and it was still up for a while.
Yeah,
Not sure that I'm moving markets.
The lines do move. No more fantasy points for Luka yet. Still stuck at almost none.
I thought you were cheering with me against Jordan Nwora. I thought that was your biggest rooting interest.
Oh, that too. But no, I did amend it to Luka. Jordan Nwora rooting against as well. Nwora, okay. A nondescript start. Halfway through the first quarter, he's 2 points and 2 rebounds. Not great. Not terrible.
Yeah.
It kind of is what it is. Let's see. What are some of the other bets that we are projecting pretty well? So one that stands out here, I know that there is no Joel Embiid for the 76ers, but the over-under for rebounds for Tobias Harris is 6.5. We've got him projected for 5.4. Let's look at some of the on-off court numbers for the 76ers. How much has the rebound rate for Tobias Harris changed without Embiid on the court this year? Taking Embiid off, I'll feel really, if we see that the rebounds per 36 minutes are like in the 5 range for Tobias Harris, I'll feel pretty good about this. Unfortunately not. Tobias Harris's rebound rate has gone way up this year with Joel Embiid off the court. So I'd be a little more apt to stay away from that one after looking at these numbers. Harris has put up 7.86 rebounds per 36 minutes without Joel Embiid. So I know we project this one well, but I'm personally going to be avoiding Tobias Harris against Denver for that reason. Let's see what else. You mentioned Shaedon Sharpe already.
I didn't mention him. I don't think I mentioned Shaedon Sharpe, did I?
I thought you did before.
No, I was talking about Jaden McDaniels.
Oh,
do you like do you like any of these Shaedon Sharpe bets? I mentioned him in DFS when we were talking DFS, but I don't believe
fair. Yeah, I might have just gotten my wires mixed a little bit there. But yeah, Sharpe's over under for points is 21.5. We've got him projected for 19.7. Sharpe's been great. I'm playing a bunch of him. I think I like, what was it, 20% of Sharpe in DFS. Let me double check that. What I ended up on. 25% of Sharpe I ended up landing on in DFS. But 21.5 is a fairly high points total for him. Also potential for a blowout. I don't know if he'd still be playing blowout run at this point in the season. But I don't mind under 21.5 for Shaedon Sharpe. The other one that I wanted to point out that projects well for us that I do like a whole bunch, Josh Hart has been a rebounding monster for a wing player whenever he gets extended minutes. His over-under for rebounds today is 5.5. Hard to not like that.
Yeah. Great rebounder.
Let me look at some of the numbers for and also the matchup against the Houston Rockets. Fast
pace. They are the highest rebounding. They have the highest rebounding percentage in the league. The Rockets.
But still, just the pace of play, it just adds a lot of possessions. Josh Hart for the year, 32 minutes per game, 7.8 rebounds.
They are 15th in pace of play, by the way. So they're right in the middle of the pack there. But yeah, Josh Hart, such a great rebounder. I don't mind it.
Yeah, Josh Hart, like I said, for the year, 7.8 rebounds per game it's actually 32.5 minutes. And over the last couple weeks for the Knicks now, that's what he's playing.
Yeah.
Looks like he's undervalued there. I like Josh Hart. Let's see. What are people freaking out about here in chat?
Are we freaking out?
In chat, always. Always.
Ooh.
Who is rebounds?
Isaiah Jackson.
There we go. So we got Chalky. We got Chalk Jalen Smith to the bench, and our leverage guy Isaiah Jackson is 3 rebounds in 30 seconds.
Yeah, wish I had set that rule. At most 1 from the 2 of them.
But I know we were trolling about Luka before, but he is now 7 minutes into the game with 1.25 fantasy points. Now it'd be more a point to be like, I think the bust is fairly likely.
Yeah. No, I think it is like legitimately this is bad.
It's not a great start.
Yeah, $70 million man says, well, Neil, ball don't lie. Luka is a dud. That is what I was hoping for, but I was hoping for it in the sense of like the Mavs just suck. What's the actual score? It's 14-19. Okay, so they are behind a little bit. So I guess I can, from one perspective, hope for it to continue.
Yeah, and then, by the way, also, because people bring up, the same odds are not available at every book. Right? Because somebody keeps saying the line on Josh Hart is 6.5. It's not. PointsBet has it at 5.5. I'm looking at it right now. Just make sure you're playing the best line and sign up in multiple sportsbooks. Just if you look at one book and the line is 6.5, it doesn't mean the line is 6.5 everywhere. Every book has different lines, and that's one of the values to our tools. You don't have to look at each book and look at what all of the lines are. You could just look at our tools and it will tell you, here is what we project well, and here's the best available line. Josh Hart has 5.5 rebounds available, not at every book, but at some books. You want to bet the 5.5 line. I'm actually going to do it right now. Josh Hart, 5.5 rebounds. And let's see what else. Yeah, so Josh Hart is, by the way, currently Josh Hart, 5.5 rebounds. Best line is at PointsBet. I'll refresh Bet Pro again to see if anything has changed, because the lines, I know they do move, but I'm fairly sure that that's available. By the way, Lauri Markkanen is available to play today. That's important. Is he somebody who played at all?
I don't believe so. Take a look.
Utah plays Game locks in an hour and a half against the Suns.
He's only coming in at 4% ownership. I don't know that I'm going to get there anyway.
Interesting that he's in now.
Yeah.
Still helps. Charles Moran left us a super chat. FanDuel, GPP, Booker and Anderson, or Jokic and Josh Richardson. Did I end up in my builds? Did I get to Josh Richardson at all on FanDuel? Josh Richardson. Okay. Yeah, Richardson's a more favorable looking play on FanDuel than DK. Jokic and Josh Richardson is going to be my answer, Charles. Jokic and Richardson over Booker and Anderson. Got a bunch of super chats that just came in now. All right, so we'll answer these, and that will wrap us up for the day. Next couple super chats here. Leaky Crease, DK single entry, Jabari Smith, and Eubanks or Şengün and Little. I'll say Şengün and Little. I didn't play Şengün or Jabari Smith. Little's chalky, but I think he's good chalk. I'm going to say Şengün and Little. How about yourself?
Sorry, I'm responding. I was responding to this XFL comment because they were majorly messing up the scoring. Sorry, can you say Jabari Smith versus Şengün and Little or Jabari Smith and Eubanks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would go Şengün and Little.
All right, so we're on the same page with that. And then Sam Van Dam is saying, Neil, Tamu has 324 fantasy points.
Yeah, and I looked it up, and he is correct. I thought he was like making a joke, exaggerating. No, Tamu currently being credited with 6 passing touchdowns and 43 punt return touchdowns.
Oh, wow. What a boy. So this guy, the quarterback, he's throwing touchdowns and doing I've never seen a quarterback who does the punt returns.
I know, it's impressive.
In fairness, the XFL is not a product I'm familiar with, so I don't know what it is they do differently there, but it's cool that they've got QBs returning punts.
Very cool.
Not kick returns, all punt returns?
All punt returns.
Well, those must be some. So here's how the possessions are going. This is confusing to me. So, by the way, it must be a lot. The defense must be playing out of their mind. They're getting 3 and outs immediately.
Exactly. The game's only been going on for like 10 minutes and just absolutely crushing it.
Is there any way that he's throwing the ball to himself on punts?
He must be. Yeah. Throwing the ball to himself on punts. I think even in the XFL, that's not possible, sadly.
Huh. Impressive start, though. Seems like he was a good piece of chalk today. Any other super chats? And no, we've answered them all. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel on the way out. Keep an eye on the injury report for today. I'm just going to do a quick recap of the injuries that we are waiting on still for tonight. Lauri Markkanen, by the way, has been rolled in, so we don't have to worry about him. The big one for tonight, Anthony Edwards questionable, Michael Porter Jr. questionable, Alex Caruso questionable, and Taurean Prince now questionable as well. So keep an eye out for those updates. But other than that, guys, have a great night. Good luck. See you back here tomorrow.